Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube. It's time for our Week 5 NFL preview, all brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. We're going to be doing our PrizePicks lineups. I had mine revealed yesterday for this weekend. Yours is coming out later today. We'll be talking all about how you guys can join us building your own PrizePicks lineups every single week as well. Absolutely. A little bit later on. But yeah, you can download the PrizePicks app right now. Check the Mic is your code. $50 instantly when you play as little as $5. How you doing, man?
Not bad, Steve. How about you?
I'm great. It's like an off week for us, Sam. There's 4 teams on bye.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely crank through this within the 2-hour mark.
Although what the NFL gives, they also taketh away. You know, you get the bye weeks, you get a few teams on the bye, but we get London games, so Sunday starting earlier.
It is. It's a long day. This is 16 hours straight here of football or whatever it ends up being. But as always, we're going to go game by game. You ready to do it?
Yep.
All right, let's. We're going to start. We always start in some level of importance when it comes to the games now.
Well, first we have to give an update on the sleeper.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Leagues, etc.
So I'm trying to console Harry after a 3-win.
Not a good week from the child.
3-win week for my buddy here.
Liam R91 is now first in the Sleeper League. You can find links to these leagues in the Discord. You can find links to the Discord in the description of this chat in the description of this show. Liam R91 is now top of the league with 37 wins.
That's good.
There's a couple of people, 3 people are tied with 36, so he's 1 clear of the field. I, having had what I thought was a terrible week, we were 3-way tied last week. You, me, and the child.
Yeah.
We were all tied on whatever that was. Now I'm clear. I'm at 31. I lead the 3 of us.
Wow.
You are second with 30, and Harry had a poor week and is at 27.
27. Oh, that's not too far back.
No.
But that's rough.
But we were tied
it was a rough week.
Last week,
yeah.
and I didn't have a good week. So
you've created some separation.
As for the survivor pool, remember last week things had tilted in my favor. A lot of people had fallen off the thing. There were only 15 people, something like that, left. There are now 14 people left alive, 9 of whom have done all 4 weeks. You know, people have sort of jumped on late. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them on the basis that I actually was I deliberated so long last week trying to figure out who to pick that I forgot to pick anybody. So I'm eliminated simply because I forgot to pick somebody.
You got eliminated out of the survivor pool?
It seems that way, yeah.
Oh, This is news to me because just 10 minutes ago, you're like, oh, man, I got to make my survivor pick.
It seems to me, too, yeah. I looked up and I was like, oh, look, I forgot to pick last week.
You forgot to press a button. So you're out.
Yeah.
Ouch. Mm-hmm. So 14 people left. There you go.
Yeah, so 14 are alive, 9 of whom have done all 4 weeks. So 9. Anyone else winning it's got some kind of asterisk next to it.
Can you jump in late?
Yes.
You should make a new account. Jump back in. So, yeah, go all that's on the Discord. Link in the description here on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And congrats to those who are ahead of Harry and I.
Right.
Like you.
And congrats to people that remembered to make their...
And those who remember to make their survivor pick and are still alive.
Uh-huh.
All right, man, we're going to go game by game. We are going to start with our Thursday night game, Tampa Bay Bucks at the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons favored by 1.5 here. Pretty fun little Thursday night division game. And, yeah, Bucks are 3-1, Falcons 2-2. So you've got the division lead on the line here.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in this game?
Well, I think anytime you see the Falcons this year, it's going to be a constantly evolving look at what this offense is with Kirk Cousins, with Zach Robinson, the whole thing. Like, I think it's changing week by week. I think they are figuring out what works, what doesn't work, what it's going to look like over the course of the season. And then there's also the possibility and a likelihood, I guess, that, you know, every week Kirk Cousins is a little bit further removed from the injury and potentially is capable of doing a little bit more as well. So number one, how does the offense kind of evolve and work by itself? And then number two, anytime you're facing a Todd Bowles defense, you're getting an unusual defense throwing its particular wares in your direction, in this case, heavy blitzing constantly, right? So what kind of answers do Kirk Cousins and Zach Robinson have for the blitz? Only the Chiefs really have tested them in that regard so far this season. The Chiefs blitz Cousins 52% of the time. The results were hit or miss. Cousins made some good plays against the blitz, also some bad plays. So that's the dynamic that I think is most interesting to me in this game.
I like that you bring that up. I had an old working theory that the veteran quarterbacks who are in a new system, it is better to maybe get after them early in their new system. I thought Derek Carr last year in New Orleans struggled a little bit against the blitz early on. Even I remember Brady with the Bucs. After 20 years in his old system, it's like now you have to be right. You just have different reads. It's a different system. You're making them think a little bit quicker, and you have to be on the same page with new receivers. So why not get after some of those guys? Right. Russ, same thing when he went to Denver.
It's no longer instinctive muscle memory, right? It's at the very minimum there's a step that's being done in that quarterback's brain that wasn't being done before, right? It was just inbuilt previously. With a new team, a new offense, and new whatever, even if you're running vaguely the same things, and Zach Robinson's offense is a very close relative to the one he was running in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell, there's going to be differences, and if he has to think for a split second longer, that's the difference on some of these plays.
The other stat that on that side of the ball that stood out to me, the Bucs have a reputation under Todd Bowles of being very good against the run. We all picture Vita Vea being there, and you mentioned a lot of Vita through the years. Like he's got these incredible plays, but maybe this inconsistency there. Third worst EPA allowed against the run, the Bucs. And then our friend Brett Coleman was tweeting out yesterday or a couple days ago about the extreme outside zone use of the Falcons. And when I looked it up, like they haven't run power or counter by PFF's numbers yet. So when we finally do talk to Zach, interested to see why it's such a one-sided run game. He's running Mike Shanahan levels of outside zone percentages. And Bijan's great at that.
Mike Shanahan levels.
Mike Shanahan, not Kyle Shanahan. Right. Mike Shanahan, and just like in the '90s, Mike Shanahan ran one concept: outside zone strong, outside zone weak. I mean, that was it. That's what they ran. So Zach's up at that type of level, but I think they could have some success against this Bucs defense running the ball. And I've been so impressed. I know Bijan's great, and the numbers are down a little bit maybe relative to expectation, but I think Tyler Allgeier's fantastic. I think they have that two-headed running back room that can help open things up. I think they'll have some success moving the ball.
Yeah, and in particular, running those outside concepts potentially gets them running away from Vita Vea, who should theoretically have a significant one-on-one matchup given the injuries to this Atlanta offensive line, particularly at center, right? So Vita Vea versus a backup center as a general concept should be a heavily favorable matchup for Tampa Bay. Vita Vea is not exactly a static, just a brick in there in the middle. He can move, but you want to get him running side to side.
Other side of the ball, again, the Bucs offenses look good probably like 3 out of 4 weeks, laid an egg in week 3, but now looking back, maybe the Broncos defense is just really good. And that was a big factor. But Baker Mayfield's coming off of a game where he got rid of the ball extremely quickly against the Eagles, fastest in his career. And until it gets better, I'll keep mentioning the Falcons pass rush, 5th worst team PFF pass rush grade so far this year. They were a little bit better last week against a bunch of backups on the Saints offensive line. But, man, the Falcons have not created a lot of havoc up front. So I think Baker in this passing attack have a chance to move the ball. Mike Evans on the injury report. I think he should be fine to go, though.
Yeah. I mean, they're running into a new group of quarterbacks now that are not as dangerous in terms of scrambling than the ones they were facing earlier in the season. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, it wasn't like it was good last week, but that slight uptick in pressure might be because now you're facing, Derek Carr, now you're facing Baker Mayfield. These are less scary quarterbacks to move off their spot and get them out of the pocket.
I will say so Baker Mayfield right now, 106.9 passer rating. So you've got traditional passing stats are good, 8 touchdowns, 2 picks, completing over 70% of his passes. The one damning number, and if you're comparing your traditional stats versus, say, EPA and different things that we attach to quarterbacks, right or wrong, 32% of his pressure dropbacks have become sacks. That's the worst in the NFL. It's slightly worse than Skylar Thompson if you change the sample a little bit, but it's Baker Mayfield and Bryce Young as the 2 worst in the NFL so far. Surprisingly, Tua was up there. Smaller sample size for Tua. Tua, Will Levis, and Caleb Williams are all up there right now on the bad end. So when Baker's been pressured, far higher percentage of those pressures have become sacks to this point. He's been a little up and down in that area throughout his career. So again, just something to keep an eye on. If there's anything holding back this Bucs offense this year, it's 3 or 4 plays per game where maybe you're taking negative plays instead of throwing the ball away or making something else happen. So maybe the Falcons have a chance to create some pressure in this game better than they have in the past. I'm looking forward to it, man. It's Atlanta. I mean, this feels like a long time ago, but Atlanta with Arthur Smith last year. This was the game, Antoine Winfield saving a game where Desmond Ritter's about to score a go-ahead touchdown or like a go-up 10 touchdown, and Antoine Winfield's forcing a fumble at the goal line. These guys played some really good games last year. It's a whole new team in Atlanta, but they're favored by 1.5. What are your thoughts on that, and where are you going to go with this one?
I worry a little bit about Cousins versus that heavy Tampa Bay blitz, and I think the Bucs have been pretty good this year. Like Atlanta, I think has done well to get the record that they have right now, given the limitations they're working with. I sort of feel like the Bucs will win this.
Yeah, I don't love Atlanta being favored here. Obviously, they're at home, the short week. You get that little bit of an advantage. I'm going to take the Falcons, though. I think I'm leaning into the Bucs being a little uneven week to week here. They crushed Washington in week 1, beat Detroit with a little bit of luck, I would say, in week 2. Rough game against the Broncos in week 3, and then they pretty much dominated the Eagles in week 4. So we'll say the roller coaster ride continues for Tampa. So I will take the Falcons to cover the 1.5. Harry's going with Tampa Bay here as the underdogs on Thursday night football. Buffalo Bills at the Houston Texans Sunday at 1. You've got the Texans favored by no. Are we reading this right? The screen says Buffalo minus 1.5.
I think. Ooh.
The document says. Oh yeah, this is right.
It is Buffalo by.
Did that just change?
Buffalo or at?
Buffalo by 1.5 at Houston Sunday at 1. Bills just had a rough game against the Ravens last week, and Houston now 3-1, 2 3-1 teams. And two of the teams that are supposed to be the top challengers for the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. I think the line has moved, but it's one of those ones where moving between the threes is not a huge, it's less of a move than you think it is, because obviously a field goal is 3 points, right? So inside that margin is a smaller move than crossing that threshold. The big thing here to me, the Texans theoretically are getting Joe Mixon back. Obviously, they've been missing him for a couple of weeks. We saw early in the season.
Is that for sure? There weren't...
Not for sure, but I think they are. Missing him early in the season, we saw what he could do to that offense. Clearly, Bobby Slowick likes having a running back that can lift the team the way Joe Mixon can. They want to rely on a bell cow type of back to make everything function. And then he was missing, right? And it's a different offense without that. We just saw Buffalo get absolutely run over by Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Can Joe Mixon bring something of that run game back to this team? And can Buffalo stop it if that happens? And then the other thing is and the line is saying this as well, the Bills got annihilated by the Ravens, but they're a much better team than that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, so I think we're at the point here. First off, it's a huge game for Houston, right? They're supposed to be, with all of their as good as they were last year, all of the offseason additions, year 2 of DeMeco Ryans and Bobby Slowick and C.J. Stroud, AFC Championship contenders, right? This is a prove-it game for them. Anytime Houston would go up against a Kansas City, which they will later in the season, or if they go up against a Baltimore. Last year, I thought they beat Cincinnati in Cincinnati when the Bengals were hot. I thought that was a really good prove-it game for Houston. But this is one of those prove-it type of games. And I think when you get to that level, because I think these are two of the best teams in the NFL, this becomes a matchup type of thing. I think the same way Cincinnati, when they're at their best, seems to match up really well against Buffalo and against Kansas City. I think, did the Ravens, do they just match up against Buffalo extremely well? And that's why that game happened the way it did. What happens in the matchup here? Is there, because Buffalo could come out and, crush Houston, and all of a sudden it just becomes a matchup thing. But maybe Houston matches up better with Kansas City. So I think that's kind of what I'm looking at. It's just how this matchup plays out. I do know, I think the defensive aggressiveness around the league, the way teams are blitzing and creating havoc up front, has been one of the stories of the season. And Houston's been really good at that. 6th best EPA per play allowed when blitzing. Buffalo's been the best passing attack against the blitz so far this year. So how do they handle Josh Allen, right? It used to be sit back and zone, make him pick you apart. He's had a lot of answers over the last couple of years. Buffalo's built to do that. I think you want to still be aggressive against the Bills, but they've got good yak-heavy answers there too. Khalil Shakir banged up as well. Not sure exactly what happens with him.
I think generally the Buffalo Bills have got pretty good track record against Shanahan or Shanahan adjacent offenses. Miami, obviously they face twice a year within the division. They haven't, I don't think, faced the 49ers in a long time. And then they faced Green Bay and done reasonably well there as well. So Shanahan adjacent. This is, Bobby Slowik's version of the Shanahan offense. So interesting test, but not one that they've shown a vulnerability to.
The other number I just want to highlight here, Josh Allen has 0 interceptions.
Yep.
Now, because game flow is a big factor in a lot of these things, like Geno Smith the other day ended up with, I think, 4 turnover-worthy plays. 3 of them came within the last 2 minutes because they're down 2 scores. Allen forced a couple passes late the other day, but he's got 6 turnover-worthy plays now. All of a sudden, Josh Allen's turnover-worthy play count looks exactly like previous seasons, even though I can't remember if one of his fumbles, if they lost it or not. I don't know if he has 0 or 1 actual turnovers, but I know he's got 0 picks. So it's one of those, I think the narrative is true, like he is taking better care of the ball, but when he's made those turnover-worthy plays, it's like, we're just down, 2 and 3 scores against Baltimore, and they, forced a couple.
Josh Allen has the same turnover-worthy play rate as Will Levis.
Oh, Jesus, you had to do it. There's degrees. There's degrees, right? Josh Allen threw a laser beam through Nate Wiggins' crotch the other day by accident. He just missed a throw, whereas we've described in detail the level of
Will Levis has
crazy
four,
that Will
four
Levis's
of the most
turnover-worthy plays have
comical turnover-worthy plays of the entire season, and Josh Allen has yet to throw an interception, and yet they have identical turnover.
Deceptive captioning, Sam. No, this is not allowed. You can't do that. Deceptive captioning. Josh Allen and Will Levis, same guy. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not.
No, not at all. Derek Stingley still playing really well for Houston. So avoid the way Buffalo's constructed. I think avoiding him is doable, right? They're constructed to avoid the good corner on the outside.
Right.
And at the other piece, we talked about Trevor Lawrence missing a lot of opportunities last week, or at least 2 huge opportunities for long touchdowns against Brian Thomas Jr. And Christian Kirk. Those are away from Derek Stingley, right? So not to overrate just 2 plays from the previous week, but there have been some opportunities against this Houston defense.
Yep.
Was that Richardson earlier in the year too? My memory's not as good.
What?
Forget it. Go ahead. Carry on. Anyway, anything else in this matchup? It's a 1:00 game. Feels like it's a primetime type of game.
Yeah.
It's a Sunday night football type of matchup in the 1:00 window here.
Yeah, I mean, we still expect these to be 2 of the better teams in the NFL this year, so it is a fun matchup. It's one that you don't see all the time. So, yeah, I'm excited for this game.
I think, again, narrative-wise, obviously this has playoff implications. It has seeding implications. Narrative-wise, is Houston really a contender? They're 3-1. The 1 loss to the powerhouse Vikings, right? You can't fault them for that. Undefeated Vikings. But can Houston be one of the top players in the AFC? I think that's what we're learning here Sunday at 1.
Yeah, I mean, you almost sort of give them a break for the Vikings game, not just because the Vikings look to be quite good, but because that Flores versus Shanahan system matchup seems to just favor the Vikings at this point. Last week, even though they won it, almost damaged their standing in your eyes. Like, that should have been a game. Like, Jacksonville looked terrible right now. So that should have been a game that they walked away with, and they struggled. They got over the line, but I don't think they come out of that game with, like, enhanced credit versus when they went into it. But now you get another test against a good team, and then from Buffalo's point of view, it's you just got shellacked and embarrassed on prime time, against another good team. Can you bounce back?
All right, man. Buffalo by 1.5 here in Houston. Over/unders 47.5. I think Vegas expecting a pretty good game here. Where are you going with this one?
Yeah, so in the sleeper app, we said those lines lock earlier in the week. They locked on Tuesday, and at that point, it was Houston favored by 1.5. Now, when we're doing this show, it's gone all the way back to Buffalo by 1.5. So it's moved essentially 3 points in that direction.
Is that enough? Yeah.
Albeit, as we said, that's not a big movement, right? I took Buffalo when it was Houston favored by 1.5. I think I'm still taking them, even though they're now favored by 1.5.
At some point, I just want the consistency between what's in our document and what's in Sleeper.
Yeah, well, that's tough to do.
Which is tough to do.
I mean, essentially, I'm expecting Buffalo to win this game outright, and if they do it by anything other than a point,
then you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll also take the Bills here, though tempted to go the other way with Houston. Harry's also going to take the Bills to cover the 1.5 here in Houston. Looking forward to this one, Sam. Monday Night Football, New Orleans Saints at the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs favored by 5.5. It's the 4-0 Chiefs against the 2-2 New Orleans Saints. Saints now have lost 2 straight, lost to the Eagles in week 3, and then the Falcons last week.
They went from the best team in the NFL to, are they even that good?
Just 2-2 again. Yeah. How much of that is Taysom Hill?
All right, give me your Taysom Hill theory.
Hold on, do you have that? Did you send me that number?
I tweeted it at you, or did I? What's that? I sent it to you, and you were like, "Yeah, I think that's real."
They're using Taysom Hill really well. There it is. I was joking about in week 1. So like weeks 1 and 2, they averaged like 45 points a game, and then they averaged 13. Then they scored 12 or whatever it was against Philly, and it's like, wow, with Taysom, they're averaging 45. Without him, it's 12. But a guy named Steve Renner actually tweeted out.
That's a real person?
Steve Renner, yeah. It might be Mike's burner, but it's fine. Steve Renner has tweeted out the Taysom factor. Mm-hmm. And this year, the Saints have run 18 drives with Taysom Hill and 18 without. Without. We got a without Taysom Hill. The 18 drives with Taysom.
Yeah.
11 touchdowns. 11 out of 18 drives.
It's pretty good.
In touchdowns. And 4 field goals. So they've scored 15 out of 18 drives. Mm-hmm. Without, though, 2 touchdowns in 18 drives. 2 for 18 in 4 field goals. So you're looking at a scoring percentage, say, of 15 out of 18 with and 6 out of 18 without. It is a massive difference. And look, you and I have poo-pooed the idea that Taysom Hill is a game changer through the years. I was of the mind when they first started using Taysom Hill with the Saints, they still had Drew Brees. And I'm like, why would you take the ball out of Drew Brees' hands in the red zone? The dude, like, he's not a bad red zone quarterback. He's great because he's accurate, and that's all you really need, right? He's a great quarterback. Why waste downs for Taysom Hill? As the quarterback play got worse, I thought Taysom's ability to impact the game went up, right? Because Derek Carr's never really been a great red zone quarterback, so you put the ball into Taysom Hill's hands. And then you were of the mind that, hey, Taysom Hill has always been a great running back. They've called him a tight end. They've called him a quarterback. But is he better as a running back? And now they're using him as a fullback and as a running back, as the direct snap type of guy, which they've always done a little bit of that. He's looked like more of a game changer so far this year. And he'd have those games through the years where it's like he really made an impact. For whatever reason, this year in particular, Taysom Hill is making a massive impact on this offense.
The other part of that tweet is, so number one, he stripped out kneel down drive, so it's like for like. He also says he's confident that going back the last couple of seasons, the data is similar, though I haven't seen that actually.
There's no data to say
out.
it, so I don't believe that's true. I don't think it's that extreme.
I mean, I'm sure it's not that extreme, but his point is essentially that this is a trend that's longer than these 18 drives this season. Though, as I said, there's no evidence that he hasn't actually shown that anywhere, and nobody else has taken issue with it one way or the other. I mean, it is like he's a difficult matchup player, even if you call him, as I have, he's basically just a power back. I mean, he is a power back that can run routes, can catch, can block, can throw the ball. Like, he's a problem if you use him well and if you give him plays that potentially target weaknesses on defense. So it stands to reason that him being out there is a better thing than him not being.
I mean, I think there were other factors at play with this. The offensive line was healthier. At the same time, Taysom was healthier. Like, there were confounding factors. But Clearly the Saints, when Alvin Kamara has looked great this year as well. Like, last week, the run blocking wasn't as good, and he's still making things happen. I think a lot of those things have come together. Derek Carr, of course, is playing better football this year than he did for the majority of last year, other than what he did down the stretch. So there's a lot to like still about where the Saints are. My concern is going to be that offensive line health against this Chiefs defensive front. I mean, the Chiefs, they started this last year. They have morphed into a defense and field position type of team. It sounds crazy with a Patrick Mahomes-led team, and Mahomes had the bomb to Xavier Worthy last week. But that's kind of what they've morphed into, right? They kick a lot of long field goals with Harrison Butker. They play field position. They're down 10-0 last week because of turnovers only, and the defense is like, nope, nothing else. We're not giving up anything else. You highlighted, you looked at that play last week where Herbert was dropping back in the end zone in the scheme that Kansas City had, blitz-wise. I'm going to keep an eye on that for sure. The Chiefs have the second best EPA per play against when blitzing. It's almost minus 0.4 per play. And the Saints have been really good against the blitz as far as their pass game goes. Can they sustain Spags? I mean, look, we've talked up Brian Flores quite a bit, and he's done a fantastic job. But hasn't Spags been doing the same job the last couple years, knowing exactly when to drop out, knowing exactly when to blitz? And it seems like every single game, when it's on the line, Spags has a blitz that isn't picked up, that is making the game-changing play for the team, whether it's a batted pass in the Super Bowl, whether it's hitting Justin Herbert square in the end zone when he's dropping back on the biggest play of the game. So can the Saints handle Spags and the blitz in this one?
Yeah, I mean, these are two good defensive coordinators, two good defensive coaches that I think are going to be, like, which one of them can create a turnover, which one of them can create a really big negative play from the offense. Like, sort of the Rashee Rice factor is going to be a big deal. Like, it wasn't huge last week, but the Chiefs only scored 17 points, and one of them was that bomb to Xavier Worthy, right?
Yep.
Like, if that doesn't show up this week, and even, you know, we talked about it with Rashid Shaheed on the other side for the Saints, right? The first couple of weeks, they were hitting a ludicrous percentage of those deep shots to Rashid Shaheed. What happens if that disappears, or if they just miss one or two more of those? And that's exactly what happened, right? Those dried up. Same thing with Worthy, right? If you get one of those shots a game and you miss it, suddenly that's a tied football game, right?
Yeah.
It's just a different game. So Rashee Rice, remember, he basically rescued them last season. Their receiving core was awful. They didn't have any talent. They weren't able to do much. And then Rashee Rice emerged as their number one wide receiver and really gave them somewhere to go with the football on a regular basis into the playoffs. Then Travis Kelce shows up, and it's a different team. Now, Rice is gone. Okay, you have this new receiver in Xavier Worthy, but, you know, either you need to figure out a way of getting one or two big deep shots to him per game, or you need to somehow work him into being a much heavier volume player within this offense, or Travis Kelce needs to show up and be that guy again. But, like, you know, if they don't figure out a way of reworking all this, this is going to remain a sort of struggling, low-scoring offense because they've lost their number one receiver.
Why do you think they've morphed so much into, you know, Mahomes having this average depth of target of barely over 5? Why do you think they've morphed into that? Is it because that's Rashee Rice's skill set? Are they playing to the skill sets of their players, or is it the league? Or, you know, again, Mahomes has not been a great deep ball thrower for about 3 years now. And it's not like he hasn't had opportunities. Marquez Valdes-Scantling would get behind the defense. The last couple of weeks, though, he hit Rashee Rice on a nice throw against the Bengals on a bomb, hit the unbelievable. I mean, this is the best throw Mahomes had in 3 or 4 years to Worthy. But was Rashee Rice a big factor in why they became such a dink and dunk type of offense?
Yeah.
And so now, again, to your point, is it now we need Travis Kelce to replace Rashee Rice, and we know that the defense can give him a lot of attention? Or is it, okay, now we have to stretch the field more. Xavier Worthy doesn't have the same skill set as Rice, so we're going to have to take more deep shots. We're going to become a different offense without him.
I mean, they trade away Tyreek Hill, who obviously created a ton of those deep shots. They didn't replace him with anybody really that can do that. So the team naturally pivoted to a more horizontal, chain-moving type of system. Rashee Rice, like, it's not like they drafted him. They didn't draft him, you know, in the first round ready to come in and become their number one receiver. They drafted this guy later than that, and it's sort of, oh, look, here, he can actually do this if we use him as a slot guy, as a yards after the catch guy, get the ball in his hands more. They sort of figured out, they almost stumbled into the way he could, drag this offense further forward than it had been before he'd been a big part of it. And they lent into that smartly. But so now they need to basically do the same thing, right? Figure out how Xavier Worthy can be a big part of this offense, because now you need him to be.
I think Derek Carr's played a lot of games against the Chiefs, and when they've been close to pulling the upset, he usually plays his best football. And I think there's an aggressiveness. With Carr, I'm always watching the aggressiveness factor. When he's feeling confident like he was earlier in the year, throwing the ball down the field, I think they have a chance to be a very, very good offense. I'm concerned about the injuries up front, not having Eric McCoy.
Right.
I'm concerned about this offensive line against the Chiefs' defensive front. But
just one more factor, by the way, for the Chiefs. What if your offense changes and now you're going to have a bunch of deep shots per game to Xavier Worthy? This is the lowest time to throw in Mahomes' career so far through the first few games. He's now got, Wanye Morris or Kingsley Suamataia at left tackle. If they ever go back to the rookie, or Juwan Taylor at right tackle. I don't know that they have the same degree of confidence in the tackles that they have in previous years, and those are the plays that you need that in, right?
Yeah.
Do we want to hang him out there for 2.5, 3 seconds on a deep shot to wait for this play to uncover? Can we do that with the players we have at offensive tackle? I think that might be part of the dynamic.
I should have done that. Remind me to do this, but last year the Chiefs' offense did get worse when Donovan Smith got hurt and Wanye Morris came in as a rookie. And then guess who came back for the playoffs? Donovan Smith. Offense was effective again. The without splits, veteran offensive tackle versus rookie or second-year offensive tackle, I think is going to be drastic if you look at EPA, because the Chiefs are middle of the pack as an offense this year. And it's always had, either Wanye or Suamataia. So that is definitely a factor as well. It's in Kansas City. I just think 5.5 for the Chiefs in KC with the crowd noise and everything. Where are you going with this one?
I will go with the Chiefs.
I was leaning New Orleans to keep it close, but I don't know, man. I'll take the Chiefs again. I think Andy Reid is the best at playing to his personnel. Yeah. He is the best at playing to his personnel, and I don't think he needs more than a week to figure out how to use this personnel differently.
And we said, I think they've already figured out ways of unlocking Worthy versus just a couple of weeks before. They've got a better understanding now of what he needs to be doing and how to get him free of physicality and all those kinds of things.
All right. I'll take the Chiefs to cover the 5.5. I don't think they're great against the spread, though, so far this year. Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. Ravens favored by 2.5 here in Cincy this week. You've got the 2-2 Ravens and the 1-3 Cincinnati Bengals. Aaron Schatz, formerly of Football Outsiders, the founder of Football Outsiders, has his DVOA number. This is the second time we've ever used DVOA in our history. We were banned from it for years now. We chose not to use it. He was putting something out that the Ravens are one of the best, if not the best, 2-2 team in DVOA history. So just something to.
How much of that is that one game, though?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's the efficiency that they had against Buffalo.
Yeah.
What was their Week 3 game?
Dallas.
Dallas. I mean, those two games were pretty dominant. And then
the Dallas
and it does adjust for competition, because you're looking at it was a really good Bills team that they did that to.
Yeah. But the Dallas game, they almost collapsed and threw it away. I mean, that got relatively close by the end.
They did, but they were incredibly efficient up until the garbage time part of that. Fascinating storylines here, because, look, Cincinnati always starts slow and yada, 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 and then they figure it out. But if they fall to 1-4, Sam,
then they're done.
Are they real? I mean, yeah. I
no,
don't know.
They're done.
I don't know that anybody is really done in today's NFL.
1-4, you're done.
The record's that bad, but you're talking about a 1-point loss to Kansas City, a 1-score loss to New England, and a 1-score loss to Washington. When you have that many 1-score losses, you're never as bad as your record seems, but it's about the hole that you have to dig out of.
Yeah.
But you're telling me they can't go on a 4-game winning streak and become 5-4? at some point?
I just think, yeah, they can, but I don't know that that's going to do you any good. Like you're too far. You've lost to too many teams that are in and around the AFC playoffs at that point.
So if that happens, I mean, the Bengals, if you said after week 1, hey, Joe Burrow's going to figure it out. He's been really good these last few weeks. This offense is not what they were in week 1 where they were dinking and dunking, couldn't complete a pass over 10 yards. It's been a pretty good offense. It's just this defense, between injuries and just ineffectiveness up front, can't rush the passer, haven't stopped anybody since week 2, basically. But if you said Burrow's going to be fine, I'd say, well, the Bengals are going to be fine, right? They have enough weapons. It's all going to work out. But if they fall to 1-4, are they all of a sudden thinking about the future? Are they thinking about trading T. Higgins, who's in the last year of his deal? Do they get to that point? Or are we still a few weeks away from that? Because I'll be honest, I don't know if they're going to be able to stop Baltimore's offense.
Right.
I don't know if they could stop Baltimore the way they're playing from scoring 30 minimum.
Well, that's the sort of bigger thing is if they do fall, yeah, theoretically they could go on this run and win game. But like, if you look at the games that they'd have lost, it probably tells you that they're just not as good a team as we thought they were going to be. You know, they're going into, they did manage to snap out of it for that game against Kansas City, and they still lost that game, right? Then they got beaten by a Washington team that they simply couldn't stop. That's problematic.
But maybe nobody can stop Washington right now.
Maybe, but they got upset in week 1 by a terrible Patriots team. They beat Carolina, but it wasn't like it was a picnic. And then they'd have lost against Baltimore theoretically this week if that's what happens. And then you're like, can they go on this run? Well, yeah, but like only if they play better football. Like they can't if they still continue to not be able to stop anybody on defense. And that's their big thing. So even Carolina last week had 155 rushing yards at over 5 per clip. Like, and now you're facing Derrick Henry, who just almost hit 200 yards against Buffalo.
Only 199
yeah.
the other day. Plus you have your best defensive player, Trey Hendrickson, knee injury. Not sure exactly what ends up happening with him.
And the whole defensive line is still banged up and not great.
BJ Hill has been out. Sheldon Rankin's banged up. I mean, we've got a lot of injuries up front. That's a big factor for the Bengals, who now have, they are now the leaders, if you want to call them that, in the worst pass rush grade by PFF as a team. And that's with Trey Hendrickson having games like he had against Kansas City, 6 or 7 pressures and, dominant. It is one of the worst pass rushes out beyond, especially when you take Hendrickson out of the mix. So again, they haven't tackled well. They haven't rushed the passer well. They're beat up front. The only hope for Cincinnati is, I think, a superhuman effort from Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why I took T. Higgins later on. I'll reveal again my PrizePicks lineup. I'm going more on T. Higgins' receiving projection because I just think they're going to throw the ball a lot, Cincinnati. I think Baltimore knows how to slow down Jamar Chase a little bit better than maybe Washington or Carolina did. I think it's a huge T. Higgins game, but Cincinnati's going to have to try to win a shootout or, stumble into some turnovers on defense.
At the very minimum, I think that they need to completely sell out against a run. Like, force them to do it in the air, right? And maybe they will, but don't let what happened to Buffalo happen to you this time. We've said before, defending the run is, generally speaking, much more of a want-to type of thing than defending across the board or defending the pass game is. Just absolutely stack the box. Throw guys, run blitz, do whatever you need to. Don't let Derrick Henry dominate this game and have you completely just getting bulldozed the way the Bills did. They get rookie Chris Jenkins back, or got him back last week. He hasn't been a huge factor, but at least it's some reinforcement coming to the defensive line. But yeah, I worry about whether they can do that at all. If they can, then yeah, Burrow and the offense need to be virtually perfect because they're going to be in this shootout. And then even if they can, you still need the offense to be good so that they can take advantage of that.
The other thing that could happen game flow wise, because when the Ravens are cooking, man, the Bills do this, the Ravens do this. When they're just feeling it, this was the last Sunday night. They were unstoppable, right? Like when Lamar Jackson is feeling it, and it's like, all right, you can't stop. If you do commit to stopping Derrick Henry, oh, by the way, I'm just going to pick up 10 yards on a keeper. Sorry. Or we're going to run play action, and there's Isaiah Likely running wide open, whatever it might be. When the Ravens are cooking, they are tough to stop. They do have that penchant for kind of letting teams back in, right? They've blown some 10-point leads, They had one of the worst second halves of the season against the Raiders back in week 2 when they blew that lead. That's the other thing that could happen game flow wise, where Cincinnati has the firepower to make those comebacks. They just have to make a stop, right? Cincinnati did that against Washington in that Monday Night Football game. They kept coming back. They just couldn't make a stop. So game flow wise, they got to find a way to make a stop, but I'm picturing them maybe not. So I'm thinking high scoring game, one of the games of the week. But narrative wise, if Cincinnati comes out of this, look, if Baltimore comes out of this 3-2, it's like, all right, they're fine. They're on track. You know, they should be 4-1 if they didn't blow a game against the Raiders. They're a toe away from beating Kansas City. They're fine. And then if Cincinnati ends up 1-4, it's like, okay, you are thinking about what do you do with T. Higgins and what does the rest of this season look like for Cincinnati. So it's a massive game here in week 5.
Yeah, so for the second week, I'm kind of buying into this idea that the Bengals are able to pull themselves out of it when they really, really need it, and they really, really need it now.
I know that's always been my take on the Zach Taylor era here.
Yeah, I mean, look, they did snap themselves out of it to face the Chiefs. Week 2. Okay, they lost, but they were a completely different team in that game, certainly relative to the first game, which was a disaster. They also really, really needed a win last week when it was against an Andy Dalton-led team that was not an easy proposition. Like it's not a trap game because they really needed it, but that was a game they easily could have blown, and then their season's basically done already. So, okay, you got one back. I don't think they can afford to lose this one either. So I think they're back to, like, you need this one too, at which point I think they find a way to making it happen.
So you're taking Cincinnati as home underdogs.
Yes.
I'm going to take the Ravens, man. I just think they're going to be – I don't see Cincinnati's defense slowing them down. I'll take Baltimore to cover the 2.5. Harry's going with the hometown Bengals. He will take the Bengals to cover the 2.5 as the underdogs. Should be one of the best games of the week. All right, check the mic today, sponsored by BetterHelp. October's the season for wearing masks and costumes, but some of us feel like we wear a mask and hide more often than we want to at work, in social settings, around our family. Well, BetterHelp is here to help. So if you've benefited, this is a way to get therapy and do it online and do it in a way that is on your own terms. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time with no additional charge. So take off the mask with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/checkthemic today, and you get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/checkthemic.
Yeah, getting that, the help that you need, I think the first step is always the most difficult one, and BetterHelp really helps streamline that by making it all online. You don't have to go digging up Google reviews. You don't have to go out of your house to go to an office somewhere. Do the whole thing online. Get started.
All right, BetterHelp.com/checkthemic, 10% off the first month. Again, BetterHelp, HELP.com/checkthemic. Let's go. Dallas Cowboys at the Pittsburgh Steelers. A little rematch from the 70s, 1995 Super Bowl. Neil O'Donnell at quarterback throwing 2 picks. This was, by the way, Pittsburgh's favored by 1.5 here. Uncle Anthony hasn't made an appearance yet. He has not made an appearance yet on Check the Mic.
Except in the comments somewhere.
Yeah. My Uncle Anthony, we used to go there for the Super Bowl. This may have been the last Super Bowl I went to his house back in 95. Cowboys and Steelers. Neil O'Donnell throws 2 interceptions. Who was the free safety who won the what was his first name? Brown? Was it Brown? Was the last name? Won the Super Bowl MVP. You don't remember that? You don't remember any of this. But O'Donnell throws 2 picks, and Uncle Anthony is livid. He's livid. He goes, "Oh, O'Donnell's on the take. Neil O'Donnell's on the take." Keep throwing it to Walt will know.
2 teams with the best regular season records.
How about that?
1 and 2.
Something's got to give here.
Dallas at Pittsburgh. I was thinking, can you imagine what the line? I was trying to find this, but I couldn't track it down in time. Can you imagine what the line for this game would have been like in August?
Oh, I mean, it's in Pittsburgh, but you still have Dallas by 4 or 5.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's Pittsburgh favored, given the start for the Cowboys and the start for the Steelers.
Yeah, Steelers by 1.5 here. It's Sunday Night Football. It's that right? Yeah, Sunday Night Football. Cowboys and Steelers. Oh, they're going to have Mike Tirico is going to do all sorts of montages of Cowboys and Steelers history. It's going to be great. It's going to be a good one.
So my initial thought is to sort of go back a little bit towards the preseason line and be like, look, Dallas is a better team than they've shown so far. Having said that, they're now banged up in addition to being underwhelming. Like DeMarcus Lawrence hurts his foot in that game. He's going to be missing for some time. He's on IR, right? Micah Parsons comes out of that game with an ankle injury that sounded more severe than it was initially feared. So they're all of a sudden missing players and banged up in addition to being not as good as they looked.
Oh, man. Yeah, this is a tough one, dude. It's Dallas is banged up front, as you mentioned, but so was Pittsburgh, right? So each place where someone should be able to take advantage, for instance, look, Dallas's run defense was better against the Giants last week, but it's still not good, right? You're still not going in being like, oh, I trust Dallas, stopping the run. But Pittsburgh's had one of the worst run games in the league. Dallas had missing their two top edge rushers, but Steelers have, 3/5 of their original offensive line hurt, or 2/5 of it hurt. They're banged up front. And then, to me, it comes down to this whole Dak Prescott versus Justin Fields. Who do you trust more?
Right.
And I've been so impressed by Justin Fields. And I don't want to treat him, kind of like how we talk about Sam Darnold and, how long do you trust this? How long does it last? But even in a game where the game flow wasn't great for Fields last week, outside of the one fumble that I thought was avoidable, tried to do too much, Fields got them back into a game in more of a shootout type of game rather than the game managery type of game that he had the first 3 weeks of the season. I've been real impressed by Justin Fields. But when it comes down to it, I still trust Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb making more plays at the end of the day. But they're also missing Brandon Cooks this week. So we're already talking about Dak working with probably his worst group of playmakers since 2018, right? Would you agree? Since in 18 is the year that they traded for Amari Cooper. Since they traded for Amari Cooper, probably his worst group of pass catchers and run game. And so now you're down Brandon Cooks as well. It puts a lot more pressure on Dak and CD in this pass game.
I mean, without Cooks, I would agree. With him, I'm not sure. But yeah, they're banged up now in a major way. Like, they are missing some important players. The other thing is, we might experience this the following week as well, but TJ Watt going up against Terrence Steele is a huge matchup in Pittsburgh's favor. And it's not like that's the only pass rusher the Steelers have to deploy.
Plus Nick Herbig on the other side.
Exactly.
Against Tyler Guyton, right? I mean, so the Steelers' defensive front has been very good this year. Dallas, inconsistent in a lot of – so the problem with Dallas, the whole offseason, you get the all-in talk, a team that had some holes, and they seem to get worse in all of them. Offensive line got worse. Running game probably got worse. Playmakers – call it a lateral move, whatever you want to say there. And you felt that. I think you felt that through 4 weeks. And the other part of, so if Dallas had waxed the Giants last Thursday night, you might say, hey, maybe they are the same preseason team, right? They could beat up on those bad teams, but they didn't even do that. That was like almost as bad to me as getting beat up by the Ravens and getting beat up by the Saints. Is that this isn't the same Cowboys team that's going to, drop 30 or 40 on the bad teams and force a bunch of turnovers. Like, they don't even have that in them right now. That's the part that's why the line's 1.5 in favor of the Steelers. If the Cowboys came out and beat the Giants by 2 or 3 touchdowns like they used to, then the line's probably in their favor. But I think 4 weeks in, and there's nothing about this Cowboys team that looks like last year.
No, and as I said last week, like I still think there's something to, they were able to tighten up the run defense and stop the Giants. I do think that came at a cost, and I think the back end, even though it was banged up and like injuries are a part of that as well, I think they exposed themselves to a lot of big plays with how intent on stopping the run they were. That is concerning. Like, okay, the Giants weren't able to take advantage of it because apparently Daniel Jones can't throw deep anymore. And yeah, look, deep or generally passing has not been a huge part of Justin Fields' strength so far, but he's absolutely capable of taking advantage of some of those opportunities.
Trayvon Diggs and George Pickens head-to-head on the outside should be fun. I mean, there's some fun matchups in this one. Oh man, am I relying too much on priors, especially without Parsons and Lawrence by looking at Dallas here, or the idea that I'm talking Dak getting points here on the road?
Yeah,
is the way to go.
That's the thing. My initial instinct was, Dallas is better than they've shown so far, and we've maybe over-adjusted too much for the first 4 weeks. But given how banged up Dallas is, I wonder if that's true. I'm still going to take Dallas in this one, but I don't love it.
I'll take Dallas as well. Every Dallas loss, we talk about narrative stuff, and every Dallas loss brings even just more questions given the expectation. So storyline wise, it's huge. I'll take the Cowboys to cover as underdogs here on Sunday Night Football. Harry's going with Pittsburgh. Harry's going to disagree with both of us here.
Okay.
Taking the Steelers as favorites Sunday Night Football at home. New York Jets at the Minnesota Vikings. This is your London game. Spurs Stadium?
Yep.
Spurs?
Mm-hmm.
Tottenham?
Yeah.
How'd I do?
Bad.
What?
I don't know what it is.
Tottenham.
Yeah. Americans saying that is
That's how you
not
do
good.
it. The Vikings favored by 2.5 here. 4-0 Vikings against the 2-2 Jets. Aaron Rodgers coming off that Sunday. I mean, listen, he's old. He's an old man.
Yeah.
The official diagnosis is a swollen knee, and then you can jump on a plane across the pond. How's that?
Transatlantic.
Do you think the swelling ever comes down? Is it going to come? It's going to take all week for that swelling to come down after the plane ride.
He's in like first class. It's not the same as us getting.
You think the air pressure's better in first class than
No, I
coach?
think your legs up and you can move around and stuff. You're not like trapped in a chair in the back where you get the deep vein thrombosis or whatever it is.
Maybe he sits on the toilet and he does a darkness retreat. He sits in the back. He does a darkness retreat on the flight over there.
I think that's unlikely.
Probably is. Yeah. 2.5 Vikings favorite here.
Yeah, despite being in London, not at home. I think both sides of the ball are actually really interesting in this game. I'm going to focus first on Darnold and Kevin O'Connell versus that Jets defense, though. Okay, the Jets defense is not as nasty as it has been the last couple of years, but it's still good. Like, it's still got teeth. It can still cause major problems for you. It still has guys like Sauce Gardner back there as, Sauce Gardner versus Justin Jefferson.
Sauce probably won't track him, but when they are one-on-one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Vikings are really good at moving Jefferson around and getting him those matchups. Like
JT O'Sullivan was talking about that yesterday, how good they are, and he highlights that a lot in his videos.
Yeah, when you consider that he is fairly clearly at this point the number one wide receiver in the NFL and, like the best player they have, up until last week, they're really the only place they could go with the football. For him to still get as many targets and as open looks as he does get is insane. Like, it shows how good they are at getting him moving and still productive. But, contrary to the amplified shouting that we played yesterday, Robert Saleh, Jeff Ulbrich, these guys are not fools. They still know how to coach defense. That's still a really big test for Darnold and this good offense.
As the chat reminds, a Darnold revenge game against the Jets. A lot of good storylines here.
They've been obviously asking him about it so far this week. They're like, so was it all the Jets' fault? And he's been taking responsibility for not being good at the Jets. Like, he's been, no, I should have been better.
I don't want to go on a little,
I don't believe you.
So Kevin O'Connell made that statement about organizations fail quarterbacks more than the other way around, right?
I think he said first rather than more than.
First?
I don't know if that's a critical semantic point, but the plain text reading of what he was saying was that
I'm less worried about what he said and more so everyone else's responses, because everybody's like, yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. It's the organizations.
Yeah.
Right? But and then it's like, well, look at recent history. Look what Geno Smith came out of the Jets and Darnold came out of the Jets, and look at Baker Mayfield now with Tampa Bay, and there's some truth in all of that. But like nobody was like, well, Josh Allen only succeeded because he went to the Bills.
Right.
The Bills weren't exactly the bastion of quarterback development when Josh Allen turned things around there.
No, but
you could say Mahomes went to a playoff caliber Chiefs that had Alex Smith and then took them to the next level. That's fair. It's not this cut and dry thing. Lamar went to a great situation in Baltimore. Like, there's truth in some of that.
But it's not necessarily. It's not how good is the team when the guy arrives. It's what does the organization do around the player once he's there. Like, so Carolina didn't do anything for Bryce Young until it was too late, arguably, right? Like the cost of getting Bryce Young actively dismantled the team around Bryce Young. Whereas Buffalo, it wasn't a good team when Josh Allen arrived there, but they then went out and got Stephon Diggs, right? Like they went and made significant improvements around Josh Allen to the point where it's like, I don't know who's responsible for Josh Allen becoming Josh Allen. Is it him? Is it Jordan Palmer? Not great.
Hopefully we'll be back. Hope we come back at some point here. Anyway, I think maybe that's worth a deeper dive and discussion. I just think it, like Bryce Young and the Panthers look completely different with Andy Dalton there.
Yeah. The
pass blocking is actually good. The playmakers actually look good. It's not as simple, they failed Bryce Young. In like a year, they failed him? Like they did actually improve. They did actually bring in a coach that could coach, Dave Canales, that's proven that he can coach. So I don't know. Like, it's not as simple as, it's the organization. Those lowly Panthers are trash. That's just where people go with it. Anyway, I don't know if I'm ready to completely move on. We from Sam Darnold and like this whole split thing or whatever. Like, I think he looks legit. I don't know if he's a legit MVP candidate or any of that by the end of the season. I don't even think that matters. I just think Darnold is running this offense extremely well. They're calling good plays. I love the way they're making do in the red zone, the way Darnold's red zone accuracy and decision-making has been. You still have a TJ Hawkinson coming back. They use Justin Jefferson really well to open things up. This Vikings offense is looking really good. My concern, so I'm with you on the Jets defense. Like, I'm going to go less than on Darnold's passing yards on my PrizePicks lineup because I think the Vikings are going to run the ball. I think they're going to be able to run against this Jets defense. I think the pass defense is still tough, but I think Minnesota has multiple ways to win offensively, and that's with Aaron Jones in that run game.
Yep. I do wonder if we're going to get, JT talked about this yesterday, if we're going to get a little bit of regression in Darnold's luck. He's gotten a little, I'm not saying he's a product of luck, but he's definitely been on the luckier. He's been luckier than he's been unlucky so far this season, put it that way. So if that swings back a little bit.
And I know Vikings fans wanted to say the Xavier McKinney interception. Our friend Dean Blandino, he said that should not have been an interception by McKinney, but that's not the point. The point is it's a bad throw that should have been picked. From a quarterback's perspective, it's still bad. Yeah, so there was a red zone interception, turnover-worthy play. There was the strip sack, and there's the dropped interception on the first drive last week where Darnold got away with a couple.
Yeah, he has 5 turnover-worthy plays, 3 interceptions this season. He has been, he's been a little bit luckier than he's been unlucky. If that swings back in the other direction, and it only has to do it for one game, against a really good defense, that can be the difference.
What about Rodgers against Brian Flores here? Because I can't get the picture out of my head of the Jets on 4th and 10, and there's just an unblocked blitzer, and Rodgers hits the top of his drop, and the corner blitz just smokes him, and he's done. And it's not like they couldn't handle the blitz the entire time, but that is a microcosm of the league right now, where offenses are not handling twists and stunts and blitzes, and the Brian Floreses of the world, they are doing a great job of taking advantage of that. I can't help but think Minnesota is going to be able to have their way, I think, with the Jets' protection schemes here.
Maybe. Having said that, 4 quarterbacks that he's faced this season have been all young, right? Young or bad, or combination of both, depending on exactly what you want to describe Daniel Jones as. This is the first guy that Flores has gone up against this season who has seen it all, done it all, knows how to attack any defense in the NFL, has theoretical answers to some of these things, or at least is better equipped maybe to dive into the bag of experience and try and bring something to the fore than young quarterbacks trying to get it done very early in their career. So, look, I think Flores' defense is phenomenal. I think what he's doing is incredible. I think the talent there is really good, but this is a different quarterback than he's faced so far this year.
Here's the one last factor that I'm putting in here because I keep going back and forth on this game. Aaron Rodgers, when his back is against the wall, even in his MVP caliber seasons, in 2021, remember they lost like 38-3 against the Saints in week 1. Jameis throws 5 touchdowns. Rodgers looks terrible. The whole team looks terrible. They lost to Tom Brady's Bucks in 2020, the previous year, like 38-10, something like that. Rodgers has a pick 6, 2 interceptions. He completely rights the ship the next week. He has a history, and it's not like he's coming off of his worst game or anything, but they just scored 9 points at home, and it was so bad that everybody had to make up stats about him. By the way, Community Notes got involved with that CBS Sports tweet. Community Notes got in and corrected it.
Was that you asking? There's a button you can click to be like, I request a
I can't remember.
note.
I actually may have. I can't remember if I did, but I do know that I got an alert that Community Notes came in and corrected CBS Sports and their made up stat on Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
But I'll just say when it seems like the shouty shows would write off Aaron Rodgers, he tends to bounce back. So that I might completely lean into that as 2.5-point underdogs here for the Jets. That's the thing. I'm expecting Rodgers and the Jets to bounce back here.
He always seemed to have a very strange tendency in his career to get absolutely wrecked in a random game sometime during the season.
Where it just looked awful.
Yeah, in a way that didn't happen really with the other great quarterbacks of that time. Like Brady didn't have a game where Brady just played like ass. The Patriots got wrecked by 35 points, and it's like, oh, that just happens every now and again. No, it never happens to them.
One time, 2014.
Right, but like one time in 87 years of career. You know what I mean? Like it didn't tend to happen to some of these other guys, but it happened relatively regularly to Rodgers. And you're right, almost invariably he followed that game up with like an outstanding performance the following game. I don't know if last week fell into that category, though, where it was just like an ugly game where they could have, should have won, lost by a missed kick right at the death. Does that have the same effect as where Rodgers melts down, has a terrible performance, the Packers get destroyed, and then, we got to rebuild everything by next week?
I looked at it specifically through the lens of Rodgers played terribly a couple years ago when his PFF grade was like under 50. The next week he would average 3.5 touchdowns or something, right?
So
it's not that. I know it's not that. But it has that type of feeling, right? Because if they're 2-2 and Francesa's calling them out, and the coach is a fool, and all these different things, right? There's a lot going against him right now. So back against the wall. I guess I'm going to take the Jets as underdogs here in London on a Sunday morning. Though I don't know. I think Rodgers' knee is going to be so swollen from the plane ride. Can't get over that. Can't get over it. I love concocting little stories in my head here.
Just as a fellow old man, my knee would not be in good shape.
I just know how difficult it is to fly in a plane.
Yeah. When was the last time you went to London?
0 times.
Okay, yeah.
0 times.
I'm going to go with the Vikings.
Oh, sounds pretty that confident, huh?
Yeah, I think.
Harry's going with the Vikings if that improves your confidence at all.
Well, like home team.
He's got a good home team. He's got a good track record other than this year. I guess I'll take the Jets. I'm not confident.
Did you see when they asked Brian Flores, was he looking forward to go to London? What does he want to see? That kind of thing, And he gave an answer that made it pretty clear that he had no intention of seeing anything outside of the football. He was like, Big Ben and such.
Oh, it's better that he didn't give the Brandon Merriweather.
No, he didn't give the Big Bang clock, but it was sort of like, I'm supposed to say something here. Let's say the Big Ben thing. That'll get me out of this question, and then move back on to Blitz.
It'd be better if he just said it's a business trip, guys.
Yeah, but that's basically what he was doing, except understanding that you should say, I'm going to go check out the Big Bang clock and fish and chips. You gave that kind of answer.
Fish and chips.
Right, but clearly he has no intention of leaving the safe confines of whatever hotel they're staying at in the middle of
maybe
miles outside of London.
It's like I'm dialing up better blitzes.
That's what I'm saying.
Week. All right, I'll take the Jets. Well, do you need something? This is a 9:30 game this week. You need something ready to go for the early game?
I will.
Factor's got you covered. You meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh and never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. You have 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, so you'll always have new flavors to explore. Make your day delicious. It could be from breakfast at the 9:30 game all the way to dessert at midnight when you're done watching football. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. So keep kitchen time to a minimum. This is the key here. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes if you have a microwave, 7 to 8 minutes for me in the oven, but there's no shopping, there's no prepping, there's no cooking, and there's no cleaning up. So head to factormeals.com/SamandSteve50. That's SamandSteve50 to get 50% off. So use the code SamandSteve50. You get the 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. Again, code SamandSteve50 at factormeals.com/SamandSteve50. Get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
What's the cooking time on a Factor meal from your wood-fired stove or your fireplace over there?
What wood-fired? It's a normal oven. I have a stacked oven. I got a double oven. My wife's making bread all the time in there.
Yeah.
Just every bread concoction you can make. We don't need a microwave.
I'm just now imagining your place is just traveling further and further back into time, you know?
I mean, it's an old house.
Yeah.
We've updated it since it was first built in 1908, but there's no room for a microwave. There's just no spot for the microwave.
No spot for
I have an ice cream maker.
Notoriously
I don't have a
large.
microwave.
Yeah, notoriously large and inconvenient appliances. There's just no spot in this house we could fit a microwave.
I'll tell you what, it still works fine with Factor, though. It still works fine. You just put it in the oven, and it works great. So go check it out. Arizona Cardinals at the San Francisco 49ers. Niners by 7.5. It's Sunday at 4:05. Niners moved to 2-2 last week after defeating the Patriots. Cardinals fall to 1-3. Fell to 1-3.
I've said this a few times that I think truly transcendent quarterbacks reach a stage where you're like, I don't know what the game plan is against this guy. You know, a lot of quarterbacks that are really good, you might fail to beat them doing it, but you at least understand what the plan of attack should be to go after them. I'm not saying Brock Purdy is that, but I do think that he's actually found himself into that sort of category of I don't know what you should do to attack Brock Purdy. Like, he's not a truly transcendent quarterback.
Whatever
yet.
Minnesota did.
Yeah, but run the Brian
luck.
Flores defense,
Good
right?
luck.
Absent having Brian Flores on staff, what is the plan supposed to be? Because normally you would be like, okay, young quarterback who's clearly being aided by Shanahan's offense, and okay, he's been missing some of his superstar Avengers in terms of offensive weaponry, but he still had guys like Jennings, and it's not like they've got no talent, even with Christian McCaffrey dealing without any Achilles or whatever malady is affecting both of his legs now. Like, they've still had good players. Normally you would say, blitz that guy, get him moving, get him outside the pocket, doing all those kinds of things, make him rush, hurry his process. But that's where he does all of his best work at the moment. So it's like and last week, they got him moving a ton, and every time they did, he was making a play. It's like, but equally sitting back and just letting him carve you up from the pocket with a Shanahan offense at the helm doesn't feel like a good plan either. So what is the approach now to stopping Brock Purdy in the 49ers attack?
Brian Flores defense, perhaps. I mean, I'm kind of with you. You just called Brock Purdy transcendent and
No, I didn't.
Impossible to stop.
This is false captioning that you're against.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, you're right. It is deceptive captioning. I should not do that. I tweeted out this week, Brock Purdy, I think, has become underrated now. I thought there was a point last season where he started playing better. And then you combine that with the fact that
not just a point. I mean, quietly he's improved, almost like that idea of, young players. We all think that young players, the arrow just goes steadily upwards, right? They just get better and better and better. Time equals larger improvement, right? And it's just this steady arrow upwards. And it's almost never the case. It's much more bumpy than that. It looks more like those the candles, for financing. You see the green or the red candle where it jumps and it's herky jerky, right? It's much more like that normally, where it goes up or down. And it's like a stock market. Purdy, though, actually has just gotten consistently better, incrementally, slowly, step by step, steadily, but has improved all the way through his entire career, right? So whilst we've spent, multiple years now, everybody debating just how good is Brock Purdy, it hasn't been a stat. Every week it's been a different answer. It's a moving thing, and it's been consistently, he's been getting better all the way.
I agree. I mean, I think the old conversations about is it Brock Purdy, is it Kyle Shanahan, were still fair questions. Like, we watched the game, Sam. There were times where it was 3rd and 15. He threw a screen to Deebo Samuel, who picked up 20, right? It was a yak-heavy offense where early in Purdy's career, when he took over in 22 and early in 23, it was like, okay, we just saw Jimmy Garoppolo, who could barely hold a job, put up ridiculous numbers in the system with these playmakers. Brock Purdy's made it better. Add a little bit of scrambling, add a little bit of scramble drill to it, a little bit of out of structure play, and he's elevated it. But it's an offense that has a history of making QBs look great statistically. But now, I think Purdy has gotten better and continued to improve. And to your point, I think they have more answers. Stylistically, just some numbers behind it. Purdy's first year average depth of target was 7, right? Because there was like, he's, Yak King, right? This is all Shanahan. It went up to 8.6 last year. This year, it's the third highest average depth of target in the league at 11. And last week, it was close to 15 against New England, where he just kept chucking it down the field. His big-time throws are up. His turnover-worthy plays are down. He's scrambling more. His average time to throw is up 0.6 seconds, which is usually a bad thing. But for Purdy, it's an extend the play type of thing this year that's still working for him. So my point in all of this is I think the great quarterbacks have won different ways stylistically, right? Tom Brady had years where he was throwing the ball more underneath and it was more yak-centric offense. He won an MVP throwing the ball down the field as much as anyone else in 2017. We've seen Mahomes evolve his game, right? He's been an incredible downfield threat, out of pocket, superstar, and he's been a within the system, underneath passing type of quarterback and won that way as well. And Purdy's maybe getting to that point where he's able to win in a whole bunch of different ways. So we spent a lot of time giving Brock Purdy a lot of credit, and he's done it this year. I mean, they're a second half collapse against the Rams away from just being 3-1, where the only blip was he ran into Brian Flores, who seems to have great answers for this defense, for this offense.
Yeah.
So I think the Niners are still a potentially great team. They've battled their injuries. When they're all back and healthy, I think they could be even better than they were previously because the way Purdy's playing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we said this towards the end of last season as well, that quietly Purdy was assuming a much bigger part of their success. And if he continues to get even better, this offense becomes harder and harder to stop. And it was true. I mean, it brought them all the way to the Super Bowl. Like, they came up a couple plays short, but it remains the case, right? And you can look at it this year and say, well, they haven't had Christian McCaffrey, but Jordan Mason's been looking fantastic in his stead. They've been missing receivers, but Jennings has looked amazing as well. Like, the players that they have been missing that might have potentially derailed them in previous seasons haven't this year, because they've got really good players, and Brock Purdy continues to get better and better. So I'm kind of with you. I think absent having Brian Flores on staff, there really isn't a good way of stopping this offense. And the Cardinals don't have Brian Flores on staff. And they have, by the way, a pretty terrible defense from a personnel standpoint.
So I think they're better than the Cardinals, and they're going to win by a lot.
I don't see how the Cardinals stop this offense is my broader point in all this.
Yeah.
And then you get to the other side of the ball, and it comes back to the same story every week, which is unless Kyler Murray is going to play basically flawless football, they're not going to hang with San Francisco.
That's been the story so far. Kyler had probably the best quarterback's game of anybody all season in week 2 against the Rams. That was their win. He's been just okay outside of that. The defense has one of the worst pass rushes in the league. They're not great at stopping the run. Just don't think they have enough talent on the defensive side of the ball. For Arizona, I think you need the superhuman effort from Kyler Murray, from Marvin Harrison Jr. The O-line has been good. They can run the ball a little bit. Like, the offense is pretty good in Arizona, but they've got to be very, very good and try to win a shootout here against San Francisco. Over-under is 49.5, so Vegas is expecting some level of that, or the Niners dropping like 35 here, which I think is very possible. So we could cut that Purdy discussion. It's a good Purdy discussion. We cut that for social probably and do some damage in social world.
Right, and then obviously label it like Steve wants to. Brock Purdy is now transcendent.
Sam says Brock Purdy's transcendent. Steve merely says he's underrated. Mm-hmm. Brock Purdy from system QB to now he's underrated? Question mark? Is that what it is?
7.5 points for the 49ers.
Yep. Taking the Niners.
Same.
Harry is as well. Sorry, Cardinals. Green Bay Packers at the Los Angeles Rams. The Packers favored by 3 here in LA against the Rams. Packers 0-2 with Jordan Love as quarterback.
Wow. You really went there, huh?
I'm just spitting facts.
Oh,
Is there a QB controversy in Green Bay? 2-0 Malik Willis is on the bench behind Jordan Love.
Yeah, 0-2 Jordan Love versus 2-0 Malik Willis, who's also outgrading him.
Oh, boy. Jordan Love made his return last week. Some good, some bad. Clearly a little bit of rust and, game flow, too. You'd end up dropping back about 60 times. So not exactly the way Green Bay wants it to be.
Yeah, I'm curious how he looks week 2. I thought his knee did not look great early in that game. I did think he loosened up as it went, and it was less of a factor as it went on. And obviously, as he said, 56 dropbacks, attempts 54, put the ball in the air a lot. So there was some decent plays in there. How does that look next week, right? A week of rest, how much is that helping him? Because clearly Jordan Love is still capable of spectacular play. And theoretically, you're not going to be in the kind of hole they were against Minnesota. So the game script should be in your favor as well. So, just generally, how much of a jump are we going to get from Jordan Love this week?
Other side, I just keep feeling like we talk about the superhuman effort that you might need from a Kyler Murray. I feel like that's where we are with, I think it's Stafford and Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams does a lot for them in the run game. Stafford isn't grading well this year. The stats aren't great for him this year. But they've got the worst O-line pass blocking grades, right? Because of all the injuries and everything that they've had there. And so you don't have Puka Nacua, you don't have Cooper Kupp. Same story every single week where I think, Stafford has to make big time throws in situations where he's not getting help. He's just not getting enough help. When they get into the red zone though, Kyren Williams knows how to finish, knows how to maximize the run blocking. He's been fantastic, but it just feels like this two-man show for the Rams to be able to pull something off every single week.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of the same story as Arizona, right? Except instead of can Kyler Murray play perfect football to win a shootout, it's can Matthew Stafford and Kyren Williams somehow combine to offset all of the injuries that they've got across the board. And most of the time, the answer to that is no. Where's the question in the chat? Jake Thornton, what do you call these people? Power watchers? The long-time people?
Power viewers, power listeners?
Anyway, he was asking...
Jake's one of them, yes.
Should Malik Willis get some snaps as should we have a Taysom Hill package for Malik Willis based off what we saw from the first couple of weeks? Did he show enough as an offensive weapon to still have a factor in the team beyond Jordan Love's backup?
I would say if I knew I had first half of the year Jordan Love last year, where I didn't know what he was capable of, I would say yes. I think the better your quarterback is, the less likely you want to take him off the field.
Right.
So I think Jordan Love is probably good enough at this point that you don't want to take him off the field. Now, if you still think he's banged up and you can save him a snap or two, yeah, I mean, Willis is good enough to use in a package, I would say.
But is there a way to use a guy like that? Because the Saints would do that. They would use Taysom Hill when they had Drew Brees, right? That's not like, okay, they weren't technically taking him off the field. They were just lining him up as wide receiver. So it's kind of the same thing.
But sometimes they did take the ball out of Brees' hands.
Yeah, so that's a distinction, right? That they were taking it out of his hands rather than technically taking him off the field. But I do wonder, is there a way of using Malik Willis?
QB system?
Yeah, where you keep Jordan Love on the field and you use him almost as a read option threat who's also could, by the way, just pull up and halfback pass at any point deep down the field. Is there a package of trick plays where he can be part of the offense without taking it out of Jordan Love's hands, without taking him off the field, but also without just saying, hey, Malik, thanks for the 2 games. We'll see you next injury?
I honestly think that depends on how good you are in the red zone. And I think LaFleur's got a pretty good history of dialing it up in the red zone. And it could be another weapon, but it's a red zone type of thing.
Yeah. And also,
but Willis is good enough as a runner to run QB sweep, to run QB sweep with a pass, and to mix it up a little bit. I would say as Love is maybe transitioning off the injury this week, next week, whatever it might be, that, I would do that. That's a fair question. I also think Green Bay has a chance to run on this Rams defensive front here.
Yeah.
The linebackers, I mean, I saw I wasn't the only one who noticed this, but I can't get out of my brain the Rams linebackers being 7 to 10 yards off the ball, displaced vertically, and probably 7 to 10 yards displaced horizontally on the 36-yard touchdown by DeAndre Swift. And good for Swift. He's fast and turned it into it. But I don't think I've ever seen such a wide open second level on any run in the NFL than that play. I think the Packers have a chance to have some success on the ground against this Rams defense.
Yeah, I mean, their linebacker sort of dynamic is an interesting story. There's talk that there is some kind of hidden answer to why they decided to move on from Ernest Jones.
I mean, there has to be. There's got to be something beyond.
Yeah, but nobody's been willing to say what it
player.
is. Like a lot of Rams beat people have been told sort of off the record there's something here. Because they said at the time, like, they just decided they were better moving on and going in a different direction, which clearly isn't the case. And the fact that they've sort of been willing to say, we've been told there's this thing, nobody's been willing to say what it is, though, is just kind of annoying. But there's something out there that is the reason that Ernest Jones is not a linebacker for this team now.
It might feel worse than this, but a 52 PFF grade for the linebackers on the Rams. It's not the worst in the league, but I don't know. There's some plays in there that look that bad. So anyway, what are your thoughts as far as picking this game goes?
I thought we saw enough from Jordan Love once he got into the game last week. The injury is still obviously a lingering thing. I think a week will do some good for it, and I think Green Bay will be too strong.
Yeah, I was initially, again, when I talked through this, it's tough, but the Rams were so fun to watch last year because they were young and Stafford looked rejuvenated. They just feel too beat up right now to be able to do much. The Rams, at some point, though, with Jared Verse, like, they got better play from Braden Fisk last week and Kobe Turner. There might be a point where that defensive front does just turn things around and play much better. Last week was a move in the right direction. I'm just not sure they're there yet. I'll take Green Bay to cover it. I'm going to change my pick. Harry's going to Green Bay as well.
You're very on the. I mean, this is shocking for you. You're very on the fence with these picks. You put them in, then you go and change them as we go live.
Yeah, I do first instinct,
right,
and then change my first instinct.
Once my pick's in, it's like it's locked.
It's not true. You've changed before.
Not as much as you. I mean, you're doing it multiple times a week.
I do first instinct, and then I take in the information that I spew.
Always trust your first
and
instinct.
Then I take in the information that you spew, and I continue to evolve my decision until a final decision is made right here on the show.
Yeah.
So let's remember that one. I had the Rams, and I've moved to the Packers. Let's see if that comes back to bite. I need to update in the Sleeper app as well. Cleveland Browns at the Washington Commanders. First place Commanders. Sunday, 1 o'clock. Commanders by 3 here. Tyler Brook over at 33rd Team writing, is it time? 33rd Team, the33rdteam.com. Is it time to consider the Commanders as NFC East champions? Can they win? Tyler Brook writing it this week over at the 33rdteam.com, asking that question.
Yeah.
And, of course, they're sitting in first place
right
at 3-1, but can they sustain it? Like, this would sound a little crazy at the beginning of the year if you said the Commanders are going to leapfrog the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys to maybe win the East.
Yeah,
but is it a legit question?
As we said coming out of last week, like the biggest factor there, or at least a huge part of it, is neither Philadelphia or Dallas look particularly good. Like, yeah, Jaden Daniels looks great. The Washington offense looks great. Washington is a much better team than people thought they were. Also, a big part of that is Philadelphia and Dallas are worse than people expected them to be. So, yeah, it's absolutely a live question. Now, though, we do get an interesting test for that offense and for Jaden Daniels. Myles Garrett, number one. Like we've been JT mentioned on yesterday's show, Washington's pass protection has held up really well this season. They haven't faced Myles Garrett yet. So that's a big part. Jim Schwartz generally as a defensive mind going up against a rookie quarterback. There was a period of time, I believe, where there was a narrative that Jim Schwartz's defense got wrecked by rookie quarterbacks.
Oh, really?
Like early in his career, because he got destroyed by a rookie Joe Flacco, that kind of thing. So I think there was a period of time where everyone was like, Jim Schwartz can't, the opposite of Belichick.
Yeah.
Jim Schwartz against a rookie quarterback is like a nightmare for Jim Schwartz defenses. But I feel like that's different now, particularly when you can deploy Myles Garrett. Either way, I think we're going to see Jaden Daniels sped up a little bit because of that. So now we get to see, all right, what is Kingsbury's offense? Jaden Daniels sped up. What can they do in terms of offsetting an elite pass rusher and some guys in the secondary that are good?
Yeah, this will be an interesting one because we talked about Jaden Daniels and his deep drops and maybe his footwork being a little bit deeper than usual. It doesn't mean that he has more room to operate. It doesn't mean it's like it takes longer to get to him. It means that the edges have a better angle to get to him and to create pressure. But of course, he's also able to step up and he's mobile. That's going to be an interesting dynamic, I would say, when it comes to Myles Garrett and his ability to rush off the edge. I'm also wondering, like the EPA per play, like all the numbers for the Commanders, most efficient per drive offense since the '07 Patriots. Their EPA per play is actually much better when there's no blitz versus the blitz. I can't get it out of my head. One of the best throws I've ever seen against the blitz against Cincinnati on Monday Night Football. But I do wonder if it's time to start taking some chances for defenses against Jaden Daniels, because he's been patient. Cliff and company, as JT was highlighting, they're scheming open the first read. They're getting the ball out of Jaden Daniels' hands. Do you start going after him? Do you start creating some havoc up front, messing with pass protection, trying to get that unblocked blitzer, but also play your pass rush lanes and just make him make – you have to try to make him make more plays from a condensed and compressing pocket, right? And so I'll be curious to see if that's going to be an answer, because when a young quarterback has success, the first question should be, okay, can he keep this up? That's not hating. It's like, well, the league's gonna see what he does well and try to take it away. And I do wonder if this is now the time when we start to see teams maybe come after Jaden Daniels a little bit more. And again, I'm not saying he can't handle it. I'm just saying he's looking like he can handle, four-man rush, read in and out, and get into where he needs to go. And if it's not there, he's going to, scramble and pick up yards.
Well, we've said the last couple of weeks that it's been like a sort of consecutive, incredibly impressive answering of whatever challenge was put in front of him, like a clearing of the hurdle that was put in front of Jaden Daniels. One team decided to come after him heavily with the blitz. He carved that up. The next team decided to do almost the opposite. He did that really well. Now I think it might be an interesting thing of, like, if Myles Garrett just destroys his blocker on a regular basis, are we going to see a bunch of these plays where Jaden Daniels kind of reminds you just how freaky athletic he is? And, he might not be Lamar Jackson, but he's a lot closer to that than a lot of other quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, Myles Garrett has plays where, he had one against Justin Fields, right, where he destroyed Braxton Jones last season. Justin Fields was able to get around it. I think it was last year. It might have been the year before. Justin Fields was able to get around it and I think almost, make a big play out of it, make a positive play out of it. Garrett gets incredibly early pressure, dominant rush win, and actually it ends up being a positive play for the offense because Justin Fields is a freaky athlete. Jaden Daniels has got that ability as well, and we've been seeing much more of the passing Jaden Daniels and what he's capable there, but maybe this game sets up for him to actually embarrass a bunch of defensive linemen, come out of it, again, even further enhanced in a completely different way than we've been talking about the last 2 weeks.
One more thing I just want to add here. We do have to speed up a little bit, I think, on these last few games, but I think it's fascinating to me when quarterbacks come in and their statistical profile looks different and they have success. So I was joking about Jaden Daniels putting together the Lamar Jackson game a couple weeks ago, where you're so efficient in the pass game, so no incompletions, right? And you're still running and you're picking up yards. Daniels, if I describe this profile to you, Sam, average time to throw of over 3 seconds, average depth of target of 6.4, and big time throw percentage of 1.8. That should not be successful, right? That's like what Justin Fields looked like with the Bears, where probably higher big time throws, but it's like you're holding the ball a long time. You're not throwing it down the field when you do it. And for Daniels, he's not actually, his two big time throws are those two bombs to McLaurin in the Bengals game.
Yep.
But he's had immense success with that style, which is short passing game, impeccable decision making, getting the ball out of his hands quickly when he needs to, and then other times holding on to it and again scrambling and picking things up. It is just I thought Lamar Jackson brought a different statistical profile to the league that was successful when he came in, because again, he would have these low volume passing attack games, but he'd have 100 yards on the ground, and it was just a different profile than the league had ever seen. And so far, Daniels has bringing a similar one to the table where he's completing 82% of his passes, short passing game, but also it's a combination of getting rid of the ball quickly, but also holding it a long time when he needs to scramble and still make positive plays.
Shout out to the Washington receivers, by the way. PFF has charted them with one drop this season.
Well, when you're completing 82% of your passes, you have to be. Has to be a part of it. Right?
Well, his completion rate and his adjusted completion rate are almost identical because the receivers have only dropped one pass. He's only thrown the ball away once in 4 weeks as well. Like all the other things that you sort of strip away from basic completion rate to give you a better idea of accuracy, none of them apply in this situation. They're almost the same plays.
The one other thing I want to say on the other side of the ball, Cleveland's offensive line being one of the worst pass blocking units and been banged up and all the issues that they've had. I don't know if Washington takes advantage of that unless they do send pressure, right? Unless they do blitz and overload and stunts and twists that Cleveland struggled with. So it could be Cleveland's best offensive performance. The Commanders' defense is still not good. So this could be the best offensive performance for Cleveland in this game. Over-under's 43.5. I think I could see that being, going over that. Might get some offense from both sides.
And because we're still dealing in crazy small sample sizes, we've now got basically 50% of the season where Deshaun Watson's played quite well in games. Now, neither one of them have necessarily reflected in a particularly good output or overall performance, but we haven't seen any signs of life for Deshaun Watson in like years to actually half the games this year. He's been pretty good.
He's been pretty good, but then the offense was still bad. Commanders by 3 here in Washington. Where are you going with this one?
So this is one where, my initial instinct was Cleveland. And now that we just talked it out, I hate it, but I'm still sticking with Cleveland.
You're going to stick with it?
I am.
You're not going to take the information that I spewed, as I said.
No, I'm going to trust my initial instinct and be wrong.
All right, I'll take Washington, as will Harry, to cover the 3 and move to 4-1 on the season. Las Vegas Raiders. Oh, shoot. That's not right. That's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to tell you about Locker. We've had an amazingly fun first few weeks of the season with our 33rd team league on Locker. If you love showcasing your NFL knowledge with some skin in the game, Locker is a must-have in your gaming arsenal. Locker contests combine the strategic elements of DFS with the thrill of sports betting into an exciting new game format. It's simple to enter and easy to learn. Locker contests allow users to test their wits by answering questions in real time during live NFL games, with the goal being to accurately predict the upcoming action on the field. By correctly answering straightforward, game-based, multiple-choice questions like which player will have the most receiving yards on the next drive, or what will be the result of the next drive, users can earn points and move up the leaderboard in pursuit of cash prizes. Many contests are hosted by Locker's expansive partner network of athletes, celebrities, and influencers like Sam Monson. And with chat functionality embedded directly in the app, users can directly engage with the contest host as well as other participants. So sign up for Locker through 33rd Team, use code 33rd, and you'll get a $50 deposit match. Join today and discover an entirely new and unique way to cash in on your NFL viewing experience. Again, the code is 33rd, and you get a $50 deposit match. Come join Sam and I. Just come play along over at Locker. Now, Las Vegas Raiders at the Denver Broncos. Broncos favored by 2.5. A couple 2-2 teams here trying to break that tie in the AFC West. And I believe, if my research is correct, the Broncos have not beaten the Raiders since 2019. How do you factor that in? Fact check me on that one, Walt. Is that right?
I don't. A huge amount, to be honest. And obviously, the whole thing has the Devontae Adams trade request looming over it. Adams has got a hamstring that he's recovering from as well, so he's probably not playing, right?
Yeah.
And then just generally, what are the vibes like with the Raiders now that Devontae Adams wants out? You still don't really have a quarterback. It's Gardner Minshew. I don't think this reflects tremendously well on the Raiders, how they've handled this situation. So is this the start of the thing unraveling for them?
You're missing out on the Pat Surtain, the second Devontae Adams matchup, unfortunately. Would be nice to be able to see that. So like from a Raiders perspective, it sounds like they'll be moving on from Devontae Adams once they get the right deal at some point. I think it still felt like a rebuilding season for the Raiders, right? They never really had the drafted quarterback in hand, but you just want to, have a good season and have a good place for the next QB.
Well, this is like, so I think we made the case, or at least I made the case last year, that I think giving Antonio Pierce the job was absolutely the right thing to do because of the way last season went, because of how he galvanized the team, because of how much the locker room bought into what he did, and because you didn't do it the last time, right? When Rich Bisaccia was the interim head coach and things were going well, you're like, nah, we're going to go another direction, and it was a disaster. So for all those reasons, I think you kind of had to give Antonio Pierce the job, even if it didn't go well. But now the thing is, okay, the guy's case for that job was effectively 100% built on the locker room thinking that he's great. Now your biggest superstar, or one of the two biggest superstars you have on the team, wants out of the building, right? So 50% of the reason you got the job wants out. Which
is why it's absurd. Like, I thought your premise was absurd at the time, that the locker room, like Davante Adams' endorsement matters for the next coach.
Well, I think it matters as long as
I don't think it matters.
I think it matters
because he could be traded 4 games into the season.
I think it matters as long as it sustains. So as long as Davante Adams remains bought in to Antonio Pierce, it's a reason for him to get the job. But now, 4 games in, Davante Adams is out. He's like, I'm done. I want gone. So now you've just whipped the rug out from under Antonio Pierce, being like, the only reason you have the job is because the senior players in this team thought you were the guy. And now one of those guys wants gone. And apparently it's because you, or at least part of it is because you liked an Instagram post saying he was going to get traded.
I think it's all ridiculous anyway. I mean, I was my last year at college, we had a new college baseball coach coming in, and they were like asking my opinion, and I was helping interview the next guy. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm leaving in a year. What does my opinion matter? It's going to be a whole new team in 2 years. I even knew at the time that's absurd. Like, the locker room dynamic changes every year. That shouldn't matter. Like, oh, they want Antonio Pierce. There should be other reasons why Antonio Pierce was hired. And the point we always made was how we have no idea how he's going to handle the totality of the job. You don't get that in an interim world. You don't understand all of that. You don't know the offseason program and everything. So, I don't know. Either way, jury's still out on Antonio Pierce. But they did a nice job pulling off the win against the Browns last week. I still think the Raiders, with Gardner Minshew at quarterback, the Raiders' run game is just still not there. They had a little more success last week until they fumbled for a touchdown. It's by far the worst run game in the NFL. And Vance Joseph has this Broncos defense cooking, man. And look, Bo Nix didn't necessarily play well last week in the rain against the Jets, but 2 weeks ago was his best game against a pretty good Bucs defense. I think he's got a chance to have some success against the Raiders here.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this with the Troy Franklin conversation, but like, can Denver find any other target beyond Cortland Sutton? They have one really good receiver, and then they're just throwing the ball to other random people in the offense at times. I feel like they need to find any kind of secondary option to go to on a reliable basis.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I mean, I'm just impressed with Denver's defense, man. I think they remember how bad they were last year? Remember how bad, like this time last year, we were coming up with stats.
But they'd gotten good by the end of it.
They did, but I'm saying this is how bad they were. They had back-to-back weeks where Justin Fields and Tua both went 16 for 16 in the first half against them. Back-to-back weeks 3 and 4 last year. They gave up 70 to Miami. And then they beat the Chiefs a couple weeks later, or at least slowed them down, whatever it was. And they were much better after that point. Like, since that point, it's been a very impressive job by Vance Joseph. They were the ones that were creating the unblocked rushers and putting pressure on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets last week. I just think they've got too much on a team defense for Denver, because there's no stars there besides Surtain. That's where I think I underrated him. I kept saying, like, I want to see all these reports coming out of camp that this Broncos defense is legit, and I think they're showing it. I think they showed it. What they did against the Bucs the last couple of weeks, I think we can't ignore that either. So I just think Denver is looking really good right now. And then you've got the history of they can't beat the Raiders. I don't know what to do with all that. So this is one, right? My initial instinct is I'm just going with history. The Raiders just own the Broncos, right? And then you talk through it. I'm like, well, the Broncos are trending in the right direction.
I mean, I plan to ignore that history. I mean, you said it there. Like, the team's different every year. The history of 2020 is irrelevant.
But last year, a little relevant.
I mean, it's slightly more relevant than it was in 2020, but it's still pretty irrelevant.
You're going to make me change my pick?
I'm not going to make you do anything. Choose whatever you like. I'm taking Denver.
I'm also taking Denver now. Changing it. Harry's also taking Denver. Across the board. Raiders haven't beaten them since 2019. Did we get that confirmed? Anyone confirm that?
So it has to be true now.
It has to be. Tyree Wilson did have a good game last week. Shout out to him. New York Giants at the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks favored by 6.5 here. Biggest news here, I guess, is Malik Neighbors still seems unlikely coming off of his concussion, which was a week ago today, last Thursday.
Yeah. Remember, he got himself concussed, smacking his head off the turf, trying to make that toe tap catch right at towards the end of that game.
You worded that as if he headbutt the turf on purpose and concussed himself, Gus Frerotte style.
You know,
he fell on his head.
His face. Yeah.
His face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looked like it hurt. It's hard surface.
Did look like it hurt.
That's huge. I mean, Malik Neighbors has been like the only positive coming out of this Giants team for the first few weeks, and to the point, like to a farcical degree. Like even when teams know the ball is going to him, it's still going to him. They were doing a good job of moving him around, getting him on the move, in motion, still getting the ball, manufacturing his way. You take that away, they go back to being last year's Giants.
A little better, maybe. They're competitive, at least. They've been competitive. They were competitive against Dallas, which
with Neighbors.
With Neighbors, I know. I mean, they only scored 15 points, right, last week? But the offense just feels different with him. It feels different.
It is. I mean, it is different. They have a viable, scary threat that isn't there when he's not there.
Yeah, that's right. I dropped a Gus Frerotte mention on this thing. Dude, headbutt the
wall.
Yeah, not great.
In celebration.
Yes. What's worse, that celebration or the Grammatica one where he blew out his ACL?
Grammatica did that. Who else did that? A couple of linebackers did that as well. It wasn't Jeremiah Trotter. Who was the Lions linebacker did that to himself? Like
Stephen Tulloch.
Yeah, celebrating
Tulloch.
A sack or whatever. He blew out his knee doing that.
That's
Multiple
good.
players have done that.
My memory still works. Stephen Tulloch. Should have a poll. Whose self-inflicted injury was the worst? Anyway, what are we talking about? Where are we?
The Giants' offense and lack thereof.
Yeah, I don't trust the Giants' offense. Seattle had a rough time of it Monday night defensively, but they're missing a lot of players up front. I'm not sure who's back this week. It's the one rough part about Thursday morning here. Still missing 2 injury reports as far as when players are coming back. I just really like Seattle's offense right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, their offense is good. Now, the one caveat to all this, so Seattle is a way better team than the Giants. Without Malik Neighbors, I don't think there's any way the Giants' offense can do anything. Seattle's defense should bounce back even without a starting defensive line. It should bounce back relative to what it did against Detroit. The one area where I think the Giants could cause Seattle problems is, look, the weakness of that roster is still the interior of the offensive line, and Dexter Lawrence is coming to town.
Yeah.
That's unique. That is you don't get that challenge anywhere else in the NFL. He is a one-man wrecking crew who has on his resume individual games, including playoff games, where he has taken over and decided the game is going a different way than you want it to. The Seahawks need to figure out some way of blocking Dexter Lawrence.
Seattle has the number 28 pass blocking grade in the NFL, and that's with Charles Cross at left tackle playing really well. It's been pretty much everyone else. The revolving door of right tackles and the interior that you mentioned, that is the one thing that could potentially blow up this game for the Seahawks. But I like the way Geno Smith's playing. I'm going to ignore his 4 turnover-worthy plays that he had on Monday night because, again, 3 of them came very late when he had to force some passes. I think overall Geno is taking care of the ball. Their top 4 receivers, as I mentioned the other day, I think from DK Metcalf down to Jake Bobo is as deep as it gets. So they have pass game answers. When Ken Walker's healthy, he's a big play threat. Beautiful 1-2 punch of Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet in the backfield. I think Walker can even overcome the run blocking or whatever he gets up front to create big plays. I just think Seattle's offense is going to be too much unless you do get
Dexter Lawrence,
the 8 to 10 pressure game from Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah. I mean,
which is capable of any given week.
Particularly against this interior. I mean, none of the interior players for Seattle are playing particularly well. On paper, Like Connor Williams is an upgrade. When they signed him, he's coming off that ACL, right? ACL for him. He's not playing particularly well. He's not playing terribly, but Connor Williams right now can't block Dexter Lawrence one-on-one. So, and neither can the guards. So it is a matchup that could change this game unless Seattle can figure out a way of stopping it.
All right, Seattle by 6.5. Where are you going with this one?
Seattle.
I'll take Seattle as well, as will Harry. Producer Ben has thrown another name into the mix in the self-inflicted injury category. Jason Pierre-Paul.
Quite a lot of players have wrecked their knee celebrating. It's not.
But you know what his was.
The fireworks.
Yeah, that's not the knee.
No,
that was.
But quite a lot of players have
I think
wrecked
JPP might take the cake since he did it around 4th of July or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people have wrecked their knee celebrating.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it's slightly different, right? Like celebrating and then, oh, my knee just popped is not quite the same as screwing around with fireworks and maiming yourself.
Not great, though. Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jags.
Does that mean if we're throwing JPP in there, do we have to put David Njoku in there? He set himself on fire somehow, right?
Did he?
Yeah. That's what he had.
Oh, Njoku. I was. Yes, he did. You're right.
I don't remember what the circumstances around.
I don't think
that
he missed
were,
any
though.
time, though, did he? Did he miss a game?
I don't remember.
This is a Wednesday show. It's a Wednesday show.
Top 5.
Whose self-inflicted injuries were the worst?
Top 5 self-inflicted injuries.
Not good. Colts at Jags. Jags favored by 2.5 here. 0-4 Jaguars.
Tyler's asking whether Plaxico Burress was a celebration.
That's in there. Where's Tyler talking to us?
He just said it to me. You're not included in that.
No,
I don't think that was really for public consumption either, but I just figured it was funny.
It's a Wednesday show. We'll have to go through the whole list.
Not so much for Plax, but for everybody else. Him shooting himself
We
in the
need to
leg
end this conversation.
was quite funny.
Don't go there.
Okay.
The Colts haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014, so it's a huge week for history here. Broncos haven't beaten the Raiders since 2019. Colts haven't won in Jacksonville since year 3 of Andrew Luck, 2014.
Okay.
Year 1 of Blake Bortles.
Mm-hmm.
Blake Bortles' rookie season was the last time the Jags lost to the Colts in Jacksonville. And I think that's why they're favored by 2.5 here.
Okay. You don't think it's got to do with the fact that 2 of their most important players, the Colts, are banged up?
I mean, that's part of it as well.
Yeah.
I try not to, okay, couple ways to look at this. The Jags have been outscored 109-60.
Mm-hmm.
That's not great. Now, a lot of that came in the 47-10 loss against the Bills. Their other 3 losses include
game-losing kick.
Yeah, game-losing kick against the Dolphins, 5-point loss to the Browns. It was a late safety there. It was pretty much a 3-point game. Last week against the Texans, lose by 4. So when you're 4 weeks into the season, it's so easy to say, well, they're 0-4, they're terrible. And look, I keep using the phrase, they're not playing winning football.
Yeah.
They have been 2, 3, 4 very key plays away that they just have not made. But they're not as bad as 0-4, right? They can't be that bad.
So they've been playing bad, but even if you just looked at the teams, right? Just zoom out and go big picture. Miami, when they had a quarterback.
Two was Dolphins, right? They were good.
Cleveland, who a lot of people expected to be, a potential contender this season, or every team in that division was supposed to be good, playing winning football, et cetera, et cetera. Buffalo, who looked like one of the best teams in the NFL for every game outside of Baltimore. And then Houston, who were expected to be one of the best teams in the AFC as well. Theoretically, those are 4 playoff contending caliber teams, at least at the time the Jags played them, right? It's not, if you'd said going into the season they would come out of those games 0-4, it wouldn't have been unreasonable. It wouldn't have been a crazy stretch to say the Jags don't win any of those games, right? Particularly, 3 of them are on the road, right? So if you'd said a month ago, or 5-6 weeks ago, Jags are going to be 0-4 at the end of that stretch, you'd be like, all right, yeah, I can see that. That makes sense. So, okay, they've also played badly while losing, but simply losing all 4 of those games is not necessarily a massive indictment.
I mean, this is where you got to turn it around now. They're asking Doug Peterson if he's lost the locker room, and Trevor's saying no. They're all saying no.
But that's
what happens when you're 0-4. You start getting those questions.
The biggest problem is that the biggest problem may be Trevor Lawrence at this point. Like Doug Peterson is being asked, are you going to take over play calling duties? And he was like, why? The play calling was fine. People aren't making the plays, which falls into the category of being true, but probably not a good thing to say out loud in front of a microphone, because the obvious implication of that is, the players are failing. Players don't tend to like getting blamed publicly.
It's the same analysis I had on Monday morning. Trevor Lawrence, you missed Christian Kirk, you missed Brian Thomas Jr. That's the ball game right there.
Correct.
Hit
and
those throws.
It's true, but it hits different coming from your head coach than it does some jackass in a podcast.
Let me just add a little bit more perspective to that really quickly, though. I'm just sorting by PFF grades and what happens in small sample sizes here. The number 22 quarterback in the NFL right now by PFF grade is Dak Prescott at 66. Kirk Cousins, 64.7. Then Trevor Lawrence at 62.9. Matthew Stafford at 60.7. Then Jared Goff at 58.6. Those are 5 quarterbacks, some of whom are on winning teams right now.
Yeah.
Right? Or previously winning teams. Like, it's just the nature of 4-game samples. I'm not impressed with how Trevor Lawrence is playing right now, but he's like in a similar boat as Goff, who just came off 18 for 18 the other night, right? So throw for throw, we're not getting a good performance from Trevor Lawrence, but is this just the 4-game sample, or what is it?
It's also trending in the opposite direction.
No, he's been brutal the last 3 weeks when you add it all up. It's been not great whatsoever.
Right.
And there's we had a good discussion with JT about it yesterday. Something's got to change there. The offense doesn't have enough layups in there, besides the deep balls that he missed. Not enough easy layups to go with the shot plays. So there's a disconnect there. Indianapolis, you've got the hip pointer for Anthony Richardson, should be back in this game. Jonathan Taylor also been banged up at running back.
Yeah, I would assume Taylor doesn't play and Richardson does.
Yeah.
Would be my default presumption going into this game.
And go ahead and predict what Richardson's going to do. In this game.
Right.
I don't know.
Nobody does at any point.
No. Do we have Josh Hines Allen left with a concussion? That was last week, right?
Yes.
Now we're starting to get into which week was this blur of what was going on, but against a really good Colts offensive line. I will stand by the fact that I think the Colts are close offensively. They're close to being really, really good. And that could be Richardson just hitting a few more throws, just not missing one by, 10 feet and, throwing a pick. I think they can be really close with a good group of playmakers, good offensive line, and even without Jonathan Taylor, Trey Sermon's been running pretty hard as well.
Yeah, well, both quarterbacks right now are defined by how many they've missed opportunities this year, but the difference between the two is that, Trevor Lawrence needs those misses because the offense is not really getting anything done outside of that or enough done. And one of those is literally, they need one of those for, when an opportunity comes up, he needs to hit it, because if he doesn't, they're not able to win these games. The Richardson thing is there's so many misses that if he just hits a couple of them somewhere, it's a huge boost to the offense. They're both defined by the misses, but Trevor's there are so few of them that every now and again he needs to hit the ones that he misses because the opportunities are few and far between. Whereas Anthony Richardson, there's so many misses that if he just improves the margin a little bit, the Colts are way better.
Jags by 2.5 here, Sam. How much? One more piece of the history here. Jags haven't lost at home against the Colts since 2014, including the 2021 game. Carson Wentz at quarterback. This was we got to get Carson Wentz out of the building here because they were on the verge of the playoffs. All they had to beat was the lowly Jags, who were already slated for the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And they lost.
Yeah.
Lost to Jacksonville in Week 18, 2021. And they were like, well, moving on from Wentz. Can't do this anymore. We just missed the playoffs.
This, I think, is the third different historical streak you brought up in this show. And
this is the second one. It's the Jags. I just said this one a second time.
No, you had another one earlier as well.
Did I?
Yeah. This is the closest one I have to caring.
Good. I care. I'm taking the Jags.
Yeah, I'm also taking the Jags.
Harry doesn't know the history here. Kid was born in 2015. How could he remember this stuff? He's taking the Colts in this game here. Maybe Harry knows better. Got to tell you about our friends over at Game Time. Got to the Bengals game a couple weeks ago. Get to games, get to concerts. It is so easy to use. My favorite part is the all-in pricing. It's a little toggle. You toggle it, and then boom, all of a sudden you've got all-in pricing where there's no surprise fees at checkout. You know exactly what you're going to pay. My other favorite feature, though, is the view of the seat, the panoramic view from your seat. So when I select my seats, I know exactly what my view is going to be and where I'm going to be sitting. So you get the lowest price guarantee. Your Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference, and your purchase is covered by the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. The whole process was really smooth, really easy. Had it directly on my phone, got it scanned, got into the game. It was all great. So from start to finish, really recommend going with Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Check the Mic for $20 off your first purchase. This is a no-brainer. Everybody's going to games, concerts, whatever it might be. So do it now. Game Time app, create an account, use the code Check the Mic. You get $20 off. Check the Mic, CheckThemic, $20 off right now with Game Time. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, man, 2 more games to discuss. Carolina Panthers at the Chicago Bears. Sunday at 1, Bears by 3.5. So much history here between the Panthers and the Bears. They made the trade. Okay. The trade that brought Bryce Young to Carolina. The trade where the Bears, I think, are still getting a second rounder next year from the Panthers, right? So there's implications there where if the Bears win, they get a better second round pick next year from the Panthers. There's a lot of history here between these two teams.
Yeah, okay. History is not the way I describe that necessarily.
Storyline.
It's hard for there to be that much
history.
history.
It's not history. It's not like they're
for teams where one of them was created in the 1920s and the other one was created in 1990.
There's a lot of recent storylines where these two teams are intertwined.
Yeah, there you go.
How's that?
Okay. Yeah, sure. I again don't care.
What do you mean? This is great stuff.
Yeah,
it's fun to think about.
You're
DJ Moore just now in Chicago. You know,
you're on a weird week of pulling that.
I feel like I missed a lot of storylines through the years, like when Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence were playing each other, the two Clemson quarterbacks, and I didn't mention it at the time.
And now
so we missed out on storylines and narratives earlier in the year, and I said never again.
Yeah,
never again. So we're gonna. Actually, this one just came to me as I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, Carolina and Chicago. Chicago set Carolina up for failure a couple years ago by trading the first pick to them.
It's all Lovie Smith. It's all his fault.
It's all Lovie Smith's fault.
Anyway, the Bears' defense has been playing really well. They are, however, only 19th in terms of yards per attempt against the run. Carolina, I think, so obviously Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, has been playing better at quarterback, but their run game is back as part of that. Like, everything's better with Dalton at quarterback. Carolina ran for quite a lot last week against Cincinnati. I think they would love to do that again against the Bears and kind of take a little bit of pressure off Andy Dalton to be perfect at quarterback. And if he's able to do that, I think this is a game they can win.
Bears defense has been pretty good. I mean, we may have doubted them a little bit coming off of last year. They had that stretch.
Well, it was one of those things where it could definitely keep getting better because of all the young players, but it also had a lot of traits that screamed regression, right? And they haven't regressed. They've continued to play at this really high level.
Haven't given up more than 21 points as a team so far this year. That was a couple weeks ago against the Colts. So, yeah, the Bears' defense has been pretty solid. Certainly, this is a much better game now than I think it looked like a couple weeks ago because Dalton has that offense, looking competent. I worry about the Panthers' defense still. I believe I'm seeing improvement from Caleb Williams. I believe I'm seeing. Speaking of the Panthers, is Eric watching right now? He just texted me. Analytics director Eric Eager saying hello. I think Caleb Williams is showing incremental improvement. Now you've got Jaden Daniels, the number 2 pick, of course, looking exceptional. So it's tough to avoid those comparisons right now. But if you're just looking in a vacuum, little improvement. I think the Bears, you and I have talked about this, the Bears' offensive line feels worse than the PFF grading, than the ESPN pass block. Every metric that shows the Bears' offensive line has them middle of the pack, but the feels have them feeling like one of the worst. And I'm trying to figure out what that mix is. I think it's because their pressure rate, the Bears' pressure rate from the offensive line is bottom 10, but the grading is like middle of the pack, meaning the pressure's coming, but it's maybe not as quick as some other teams. But there are some plays Like the last play where Williams got sacked, Caleb got sacked last week, it was like 3 dudes in his face at the top of his drop. So there are some plays where he just has no chance. But in this game against Carolina, who doesn't have a good pass rush, I think we're going to have the best game of Caleb Williams' career this week. That's what I'm anticipating. I think he's trending in that direction. He's not going to miss Roma Dunze. We're going more on Roma Dunze's number this week, his projection. And Caleb Williams is going to have the best game of his career against Carolina.
I mean, it's certainly set up for that, right? Carolina still does not have a good defense, even if they look better with Andy Dalton there, along with everything else in the team. Like, it's not good. So it's definitely there for Caleb Williams to have a better game. As he said, he should be under significantly less pressure. The biggest factor, I think, for the relative struggles that he's had, I think, have been that offensive line. It's been significantly worse than I expected it to be. I think some of the losses are immediate. They're devastating. So yeah, like if that goes, I think this could be a sneaky, really good game. Like I expect Carolina's offense to have some success, and collectively we seem to be expecting Caleb Williams and the Bears to have more success this week. So I actually think this will be a fun one.
Yeah, good battle of the Panthers pass protecting pretty well. Bears getting after the quarterback pretty well. I think it is a sneaky good game. Bears by 3.5 here on Sunday. Where are you going?
Going with the Panthers.
Ooh, there you go. I'll take the Bears. I'm buying into this Caleb Williams big game. Roma Dunze more than his projection. Harry was also going to take the Bears here Sunday, 1 o'clock. Last game, I believe. 4 teams on bye. It's like, this is great. We could be on time.
Deservedly the last game.
Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots.
Yuck.
Patriots favored by 1.5. Jacoby Brissett and Tyler Huntley.
This really should be a Thursday night game. Imagine Al at halftime of this game.
In August.
Yeah.
Thursday night in August.
Al Michaels at halftime of this game would be like pitching things out of the booth.
Oh, that would be great. The NFL should flex the worst games of Thursday night football for Al. What do you think Al hates worse, a bad football game or a vegetable?
And then there should be like the choices you get for the viewing experience, right? The main broadcast, we can whatever the stat thing is. Then there should be a third one that's just Al Cam, and it's just Al Michaels getting progressively more pissed off by
like
the ineptitude around
in between.
Him. Yeah,
he's like,
like where you can and if you watch Premier League soccer, you can you can watch one guy follow him around the whole
watch
night.
Al.
Just be Al. Just Al Cam 24/7, him just throwing things at people.
Al's doing just updating like in-game bets and everything just to keep it fresh.
Just to feel alive.
Yeah. It's 12-9. This feels like a 12-9 game.
Yeah.
Once we come out of it. The 2 lowest scoring teams in the NFL. Patriots favored by 1.5 here. Historically, the Tua era for Miami, or particularly the Mike McDaniel, I don't think New England's beaten them. Another old streak, but I just made that one up. I'm pretty sure that's true. They've had good success against Belichick's Patriots. What can Gerard Mayo's Patriots do here?
Yeah, I mean, so okay, Miami looked terrible without Tua. I am, however, at least curious to see what another week of Tyler Huntley can be. Like, sure, he hasn't been there very long. I feel like we've seen it. There is an offense to be crafted that works with Tyler Huntley at quarterback. Now, it's a very different offense to what Mike McDaniel typically likes to run. So we do get into this world of, can you repeat the trick of Matt LaFleur, right, and create an offense that's very different from your regular one to suit a backup quarterback who is very different from your regular starter. I think he has to do that. Like, he can't just expect Huntley or Skylar Thompson or whoever to become Tua. That's not going to work. We've seen that already. So what does another week of this look like between those two? Really sad for Miami. They lost Jalen Phillips to a knee injury. That's now his second season ender in consecutive seasons. He was coming off an Achilles injury. Now it's an ACL, right? So back-to-back season-ending significant injuries for a really impressive, talented young pass rusher from their point of view.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for Miami. Phillips, remember Chris when we were doing the draft? That was his favorite player in the draft that year, and he was on the ascent. I thought Jalen Phillips and guys like Greg Rousseau were both like two of the next potential stars off the edge. But yeah, Phillips having another injury is definitely unfortunate. Christian Gonzalez last year started to make a name for himself against Miami. Remember, it was week 2 when Tua was there. He had the interception against Tyreek Hill. He was playing safety on the play, but he did have some nice reps against Tyreek Hill. That matchup, always interesting to watch. Just to touch on New England, situation overall. Their offensive line, when you just isolate tackles, guards, and centers, it's the second worst pass blocking grade among offensive linemen, second worst run blocking grade among offensive linemen. I mean, this was as expected, right? New England surprised us in week 1 with an upset against the Bengals, and then they've pretty much been, I think, what we thought they were going to be to this point.
Yeah, they're dead last in pass blocking efficiency, behind Tennessee, who have their problems, obviously, behind the Rams, whose entire offensive line is hurt. Like, terrible.
So I'm at the point where, look, I think Jacoby Brissett is in an impossible situation. You don't have good receivers, and you don't have good offensive linemen, right? You don't have anything. I am also of the mind where, like, if you put Drake May in, there might be some plays where it's like, oh, look, but you have to stay the course here and keep him on the bench.
Yeah.
Suck it up.
He might be a better quarterback for you at this point, but the question is not, are we better with Drake May at quarterback right now? It's, is Drake May playing right now damaging him over the course of this season? And I suspect it probably is.
Yeah. I mean, if they could make it to like week 13 and then maybe he starts at the end of the season just to, get some reps.
That conversation of, organizations fail quarterbacks before. Like, if you put Drake May out here right now and he spends 12 games getting his ass beat down and then next year he stinks, we would be saying that was negligent by the Patriots. That was organizations failing quarterbacks. That's what they're weighing up.
To this point, I mean, they just need to be a little bit better just to avoid having those questions. Anyway, sounds like Ramondre Stevenson might not get the start anymore
on account of fumbling.
Antonio Gibson, 4 fumbles in 4 games. Anyway, where are you going with this one? Patriots by 1.5.
Where am I going?
Over-under's 36.5.
I'm going with the Patriots, apparently.
Apparently I am too. So is Harry, taking the Patriots here. That's it for the games. Let's talk prize picks.
Let's talk prize picks.
I gave my lineup yesterday.
You did.
And for those who don't know, my lineup was pretty awesome last week.
Yes. Well, you hit all
4.
4, which means you 10x your money.
Yes.
I
can't guarantee that every week.
Right.
But last week was a good week.
Malik Neighbors getting knocked out of that game robbed me of mine, and then the Red Rifle was 2.5 yards less than his projection, so I missed on there as well. So I'm under pressure. You got a W last week. You've got your pick slate in already, and now it's my turn.
So my lineup was in yesterday. We'll go over that in a second. I want to hear your lineup, Sam's lineup here for week 5.
Okay, number 1. And that's tonight, right? The Thursday night game. I am officially out on Kyle Pitts. So less than 30.5 receiving yards. So that's not a lot.
After he had 0 last week, that could be
correct. But Kyle Pitts, I'm just done waiting for him to have production. It should be there. It isn't. I don't know why. I feel like you should be able to get him some schemed up touches. They don't appear to be interested in doing it. So I'm done waiting. Less than. It's not going to happen. Number 2. Here's where we get creative. Aaron Rodgers. For more than 6.5 rushing yards.
Really?
Look, Brian Flores is going to have him running for his life, and even though he's hobbled with his swollen knee off the plane, he's going to be running around so much that he's going to find a 10-yard scramble somewhere.
This is ludicrous.
He's going to find one 10-yard scramble somewhere from the game, and that's going to get me more than 6.5 rushing yards. So Aaron Rodgers more than his 6.5-yard rushing. And then also, sticking with the theme of not running backs and rushing yards, CeeDee Lamb, the best running back on the Dallas Cowboys, is going to have more than 2.5 rushing yards. One carry is all I need, and CeeDee Lamb will hit more than 2.5 rushing yards.
You know what was Rodgers again?
6.5. So I need one scramble from Rodgers.
No, you forgot about the QB kneel. You forgot to factor in the QB kneel.
You don't have him winning the game. That's fine.
Because if the Jets win, Rodgers has 1 carry for 8 yards. And then they have 2 kneels at the end.
No, it's fine.
And then he's going less than.
It's fine because they're not winning the game. He's going to be running for his life. He needs 1 scramble. So I need Kyle Pitts to remain as anonymous as he has so far. I need Rodgers to scramble once, and I need CeeDee Lamb to be given 1 carry of any description.
I like the CeeDee Lamb one because you don't have the fear of the QB kneel, and I think they do good. They do well to feed CeeDee the way he does. So there it is. Pitts, Rodgers, and CeeDee. I can't believe you're going with those tiny rushing projections.
I mean, how can they fail? Rodgers is going to scramble all day. There's got to be one where he gets, some positive yardage. And then CeeDee Lamb, he's the best running threat that they have.
The chat's saying Zach's going to watch this and feed Pitts. It just takes one. I hope they start with a play action bomb to Pitts, a little corner route. Oh, man.
If anybody sends this to Zach, I will be very upset.
And there is no inside info. They were asking if there's any inside info on this as well. There's obviously
no.
I assume that's highly illegal, but I would
assume so. Yeah,
I would never do such things. Here's my lineup from yesterday. T. Higgins more than 57.5 receiving yards. I'm expecting a lot of passing from the Bengals and a lot of T. Higgins being featured.
I feel like that's risky against Baltimore.
It's going to be a shootout. They're just going to have to do it. He's going to have like 9 catches for 90 yards or something. Sam Darnold, less than 231.5 passing yards. In part, I think the Vikings are going to run the ball, and I think Darnold struggles a little bit against this Jets pass defense. And then Rome Odunze, more than 36.5 receiving yards because he was open on a 70-yard bomb last week. And it's going to happen again, and Caleb Williams is going to hit him this time.
And you expect Caleb Williams to be under pressure less this time. So.
Yeah, Caleb Williams on the way to his best game as a pro this week against Carolina. Rome Odunze is the beneficiary.
Okay.
So there we go. PrizePicks lineup, mine and yours for the week. You guys can join as well. Download the PrizePicks app. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code Check the Mic. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code Check the Mic on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. Don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's all guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game.
And
so,
of course, head to the Discord and join in with the picks there.
You're having all sorts of fun with it this year over at PrizePicks. Shout out to them for being a part of Check the Mic. All right, man. Take the rest of the week off. You're done.
No, because we have Thursday Night Football tonight, Steve.
Oh, no, you're right.
Instant reaction.
There will be an instant reaction.
Because you're not at the game.
Tonight. I wanted to go to this game. I was thinking about trying to.
That's one of those stadiums. That would be on the list, right?
I had a flight. I looked at a flight that was leaving in about 2 hours here that we could have jumped on and just gone to the game. We missed it.
We definitely need to start doing that. There's a bunch of stadiums in the NFL that do look amazing to go and check out a game, and this would be one of them. It's in Atlanta, right?
Let's just start surveying the crowd here. If we came to your city, would you join us for like a little meetup, a little meet and greet on a Monday night football game, Thursday night football game, because we have aspirations of doing such things. But I want to know that we have enough friends that would come and hang out and join us. So
we have aspirations.
So let us know.
It's unclear what they are, but we have them.
We do. Instant reaction tonight, and then of course Monday morning, first thing, 7 a.m. reviewing all the Week 5 action. That's it for us today. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again Monday with more Check the Mic.